Belgium to Congo, turned it to hell. Rubber and ivory children fell. Britain snatched Nile, France took the West. Germany grabbed land like it passed a test. No language in common, just rule and divide. Fed us their flags, made us swallow our pride. They taught us to hate what we saw in the mirror. Now we pray to their gods just to feel clearer. Hey, we were even there. Split the bloodline. Names not our own. Borders like chains. Still today, we carry the pain. Who gave them the right? Responsive body. Who let them rewrite? Not our bodies cold. Who drew the line? Through our souls. Colonial goals. What they stole, we'll reclaim whole. We are the story they tried to control. But memory's a drum and truth don't sleep. Our roots run deep where their cuts ran steep. Now we rise with fire in our name, burning their maps, reclaiming our flame. Burning their maps, reclaiming our flame. You carved us up. We rise again. One Africa. Yeah.
Should bring you all up now. Greetings, everybody. How are we all doing? Let me just position this well. Need to take my glasses up. Okay,
I'll do
got
it. Okay, good.
Oh,
No,
got
no,
it. Oh, got it.
I'll do
Yeah,
it.
let's do it. Let's do it that way. Let's
you
do
want to
let's
do
do
it
that
that
way. We can put John in the yeah. We can put John in the big screen. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another Alkebulan Awakening series in collaboration with Kumbukeni. My name, as always, is Oladele Dosumu, the founder of the Emerging Alkebulan. And as you all know, as you are accustomed to our channel, we are about decolonizing our minds and awakening our consciousness. My one Ubuntu people, it's about time we wake up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation, Unduku. You're muted.
All right. Habari gani, karibuni, asanteni kwa kuwa nasi. So how are you doing? What's the news? Habari gani? Welcome and thank you for being with us. The name is Nduku. I'm the host on Kumbukeni, and my brother and I always do these collaborative broadcasts because we are stronger together, right? These silos that we keep building are not making any difference. So it's better to come together and do this work together. I will say, as I introduce myself, who gave them the right? Who let them rewrite? What they stole, we will reclaim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, as you can see, we got our guest. I'll let him introduce himself. For those who don't know, this is the author of the Confessions of the Economic Hitman. John, please introduce yourself for people who don't know you.
Well, I think you just did. I was an economic. My actual title was I was chief economist at a major U.S. consulting firm, but our job was to do exactly what you're talking about. It was to colonize, basically, to identify countries that had resources that corporations covet and want, like oil, and then today it would be more like lithium and some of the rare minerals, as well as oil. Then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sister organizations. But the money didn't actually go to the country. It went to our own corporations to build big infrastructure projects in the country, things that made huge profits for our corporations and helped a few of the rich families in those countries, the ones that benefited from much more electricity, highways, ports, airports, and left the country in huge debts. And so at that point, we go back, usually in the guise of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and say, hey, you can't pay your debt, so we're going to take your collateral, sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies without environmental or social regulations. Let us build a military base on your soil, privatize your water and sewage systems, and sell them cheap to our investors. Vote with us on the next major vote against China or Cuba or whatever. So it was really an imperialistic move on our part, creating a global empire. Really, it's a corporate empire backed by the U.S. government.
Thanks for that breakdown there. Yeah, thank you for that breakdown. Okay, the topic today, because I was going through your emails and I saw you were looking for people to give us a title for your new book. Obviously, you've told us. I'm going to put it up there. So the topic there that you gave us is Out of the Still, Trump, the Economic Hitman Presidency. Do you want to break that down for us, please? Because obviously, before you go, you can see what's going on in the world today with Trump and his overreaching in Venezuela, Cuba, Gaza, the DRC, Nigeria, Iran. You can see what's going on. So if you want to break that down for us, let's start with that.
Yeah, well, I want to start by saying I make a very big point in the book that this is not, even though Trump is in the name and the title and on just about every page, this is not about Trump. This is about a system. Every U.S. president, Democrat and Republican elect, since Eisenhower, have used economic hitman. But Trump is the first to actually become an economic. I mean, he excels at it. He is an economic hitman. And he's established a precedent in this country that hopefully won't be a precedent. Hopefully at some point we'll reverse it. But it's like he's hit us with a 2x4. And he's forced America to look at ourselves the way you probably always look at the way Africans, Latin Americans, and so many others have seen the exploitation that's gone on. But most Americans aren't aware of this. Trump has forced us to be aware of it. There's still a large portion of of our population that isn't aware of it. The MAGA people, his followers, the Republicans seem to be, resisting understanding what they know to be true. But so I think Trump has actually done us a favor in that he's waking us up. He likes to use the term woke as a negative. Woke people. Well, you don't want to be woke. Who doesn't want to be awake? And he's shaking us awake, frankly. But in the process, he's doing some horrible things that are almost seem irreversible, although I hope at some point they can be reversed. And I think, it's time for the United States to really recognize that we failed badly at realizing our own ideals, the ideals of democracy, justice, individuality, with individuality that supports family and community, liberty with responsibility. These are wonderful ideals. And I think the whole world can relate to. It's one reason people want to come and live in the United States. But the United States has never fully realized these ideals. And under Trump, we've taken a real big step backwards. We've shoved those ideals under the bus, so to speak, under the ground. We've buried them, or he's attempting to bury them.
You talked about ideals there, because as an African, I look at America for what it's done historically. What they have been horrendously bad. I don't know, I'm trying to hold my words there. So in Africa, we look at historically through the colonization, imperialism, they've basically had an overreach. They've basically destroyed whatever they've got. So the question from me to you is, has America had any ideals to start with? Because historically, the America that we're talking about now is not even theirs.
Can I add to that? Because I don't want to repeat your question, because that's exactly what came to mind. These have never been American ideals, right? The United States, everything it calls itself, it's never been that. And it's so much more clearer to me now because I'm actually taking several courses on the United States history and the racism in it and policing and overcriminalizing of Black people. So I believe it's always been just talk, and the action was actually the opposite of what they said they were. But yes, as Oladile asked, please speak on that.
Yeah, so when I say the American ideal, I'm referring to the Declaration of Independence. I'm referring to Thomas Paine's writings and such things that are supposedly the basis of our Constitution, but they've never been realized, as I said. I do think there's been progress in that direction. African Americans finally get the right to vote. Women finally get the right to vote. It's been very slow. And as it relates to the outside world, to the rest of the world, to Africa, to Latin America, to the Middle East, to Asia, America's never practiced what it preaches at all. We've been very exploitative. Our corporations, at first it was the American government was involved, and then increasingly it became corporations, but supported by the American government. So you're absolutely right. The idea, we've never come close to attaining it. Nonetheless, it's there. And it's changed people around the world. You know, it caused the French Revolution to launch that. It launched so many. I think probably some of the things that are behind what's going on in Africa, what's behind many of the movements, anti-colonialistic movements around the world, really represent this ideal that was established through the Declaration of Independence, never realized. The ideal is there. So now I like to think of it as a global ideal. It is a global ideal, and it is an ideal. And the reason that I write these books, the reason that I expose these systems is because I want to see that changed. I get accused frequently as being anti-American. I'm not anti-American. I'm anti what America has been doing recently, and even more so now. I have hope. I want to see my country get better. That's why I write these things, because I think if you want to be a democracy, you've got to criticize what's wrong. You've got to self-evaluate and change. And the United States has a tremendous amount that's wrong and needs to change, as you pointed out.
Quickly, Oladele, just in response of that accusation of being anti-American, my response would be to the person that accuses you of that. Can you hear me, John?
Yes.
Yes. What is America to you, right? To the person that says that to you, ask them, what is America? And then they describe it. And then you give America is doing this and that and that. It is supporting Israel in destroying Palestine. It is supporting the invasion of Palestine and taking over of that land. It is supporting GMOs. It's supporting not lifting up Africa's economy and in fact stepping on their necks. It's supporting all these things that are promoting death. Why would anyone support that?
That's a really good question. And I think there's a complex answer to that. One of them is that a lot of people don't realize here in America that they're doing that. I didn't. For 7 of the 10 years I was an economic hitman, I thought I was doing the right thing, because we're taught in our schools that the way to help a poor country is to give them a huge loan and have them pay us to build infrastructure projects, electric utility grids and highways and ports and airports. We're taught that increases GDP, and it does. You can prove this statistically. So I looked at the statistics. Oh yeah, this proves it. And GDP per capita, which makes you think that when you increase GDP per capita, you're helping everyone, per capita, per person, you know. But as I dug into this, I saw that, you know, GDP really, it only reflects how well the wealthy are doing. and the big corporations. It does not measure overall prosperity. And GDP per capita is simply GDP divided by the number of people. It says nothing about the prosperity of the average person or the majority of the people. But most Americans don't understand that. I didn't understand it. And our education system, including our MBA programs, our advanced educations, you get a PhD in economics in this country, and you're going to believe that GDP per capita increasing in a country like Nigeria is helping everybody in that country, and it isn't. Any more than it is here in the United States, for that matter, but it's more pronounced in many other countries. So, but people fall for that. That's one side of it. The other side of it is, the people that support what we're doing abroad feel that they've got a good life here in the United States, so they don't really care. Like, okay, so if we've got to steal oil from the rest of the world to have our life standards here, that's okay. I think a lot of the MAGA Republicans today, that's their belief system. They probably fall into both categories. They don't really understand the truth behind economic development, and they also don't want to understand it because they like to exploit other countries. Why not? Why shouldn't we exploit them? They're just, I mean, can I say this on the air? But I'm just quoting Trump to say that the people who live there are vermin, and these are shithole countries. I mean, when the president of the United States says that, it's totally outrageous. And yet, at the same time, it expresses what a lot of Americans feel, unfortunately. And my job as a writer is to try to change that, is to try to get this information out there. And it's very frustrating because I know I'm often just singing to the choir, basically, but I try very hard not to. That's why one of the reasons I'm writing this book called The Art of the Steal, subtitled The Economic Hitman Presidency. I make very strongly the point this is not partisan. It's Republicans and Democrats alike, because I want Republicans to read this book. I want to reach those people that I know there's some that I'll never reach, the hardcore MAGA Republicans. But there's others that are questioning things now. They're really beginning to question things. Just this morning, in my time, and on the East Coast, in your time, it was a little later, the Supreme Court, blocked many of Trump's tariffs by a 6-3 vote, which is unprecedented in a way with this Supreme Court. Because let's face it, this Supreme Court has been very pro-Trump, as has the Congress. And I'm going to shut up in a minute, but one of the things we've seen is that the system of checks and balances in this country that I was brought up believing protected us from the kinds of things Trump is doing don't work if you've got a president who belongs to one party, and Congress is controlled by that party, both houses, and the Supreme Court is also controlled by that president. But we're now seeing, at least in some cases, the Supreme Court standing up to Trump. I hope it'll continue, but we'll see.
Excuse me. Okay, Mike, just looking at what's going on in Venezuela, because when I reached out to you early last month, you were saying you were going to the Amazon. Obviously, I know you have a sort of kind of affiliation with the Amazon and the Indigenous people and what's going on there. So looking at what's happening in Latin America at the moment with Venezuela, Cuba, there's a threat going on there. Obviously, Nigeria, my country, you can see what's going on there. What's your thoughts on the overreach at the moment with Trump and what he's doing? What's your thoughts on all those?
It's outrageous. I don't know. I don't know how to express. My thoughts and my feelings are outrage. My thoughts are that it's totally counterproductive anyway. I mean, I just came back from Latin America. People there are terrified of the United States, and they hate what's going on. Most of them don't like Maduro. They're glad that Maduro is gone, but the Maduro regime is not gone. His administration's still in control. So this was not about changing anything really in Venezuela. It was about showing force. And Trump can talk about it being about oil, but it's not about oil. The infrastructure for oil in Venezuela is totally lacking. The president of Exxon said, well, we're not ready to go into Venezuela. There's no infrastructure and there's no stability. We don't dare go in. And in any case, the United States produces more oil than anyone else in the world. We don't need more oil. So it's not about oil. It's not about drugs, because if it were really about drugs, you don't kill the people that you think are running the drug, what we call the mules, whether they actually were running drugs or just fishermen. In any case, even if they really were running drugs, it's stupid to kill them. You want to capture them and get them to talk about who hired them, and move up the chain. You want to go to the top people. Killing off the messenger doesn't do any good. So the attack on Venezuela was all about Trump showing that he had power. I'm totally convinced that's what it was all about, and scaring the hell out of the rest of the world. And now we've got this huge fleet in the Persian Gulf. I one time lived in Bandar Abbas on the Straits of Hormuz, and now there's a huge military fleet right there, in a military base I helped to build, and also in the Mediterranean. So we've got these two huge fleets threatening so many parts of the world, and it's a complete imperialistic move. There's just no other way to look at it, and it's terrifying. It's not serving the United States. It's helping China. I think Xi Jinping must be incredibly happy these days, because Trump is playing right into his hands. In Africa, I know in Latin America, the countries are all turning to China for protection, for economic deals, for trade agreements, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, sorry, Nico, before you go, the fact that they're all looking to China for help, but what is China doing by still allowing America to go to Venezuela? Because are they just watching what? Because Russia has interest in Venezuela, China has interest in Venezuela, but yet America's bullied themselves through and basically taken over. So what are the other countries doing there? What's their position?
Well, I mean, if I were Xi Jinping, I wouldn't do anything. I would sit back and say, great. The more this guy Trump makes a fool of himself and pisses people off around the world, the better. So let him do it. I don't care if he takes over some Chinese properties. That's small potatoes. It's peanuts. So yeah, I think you enjoy that. Putin is in the same boat. Yeah, Trump is taking the United States into a much worse position than it's been in recent history. So let him keep doing it. And I also want to say, one of the reasons I stopped being an economic hitman and write about it in my books is I'd begun to understand the truth behind the lies that I was being sold and I was selling to the world and to myself. I began to understand them, but I didn't want to believe it because I was making a lot of money. I was traveling first class around the world. I come from a teacher's family in rural New Hampshire. We never had much money. I never had the opportunity to leave New Hampshire, a little tiny state, just almost in Canada. And now suddenly I'm meeting with presidents, wining and dining with beautiful women and heads of state. So I didn't want to believe the lie that I knew was out there. And I think that says a lot about a lot of people who are in that kind of position. But then, I think this is significant when we talk about Africa, is that I took a vacation in the Caribbean and on a little sailboat, and I anchored off St. John Island in the Virgin Islands. And late one afternoon, I rowed the dinghy ashore and I climbed this hill to the ruins of an old sugarcane plantation, an old sugar plantation. And as I'm sitting there, I'm surrounded by these ruins and bougainvillea, beautiful flowers, looking out at the sun setting over the Caribbean. I'm thinking, God, what a great life. This is beautiful, idyllic. And then it struck me that the sugarcane plantation was built on the bones of thousands of African slaves. And then it occurred to me, well, the whole hemisphere is built on the bones of African, Native American, all kinds of slaves. And then I had to admit that I too was a slaver. And, I'm not dragging people out of their homes and putting chains on them, but I'm enslaving them in debt. That was my job. And at that moment, I decided I would would quit. And I did. When I went back to my headquarters in Boston, I went into the president's office and quit. But it was that connection with imperialism, that's blatant connection of slavery. And that's blatant and overt. But what we're doing now, and what I was doing, was hidden. It's in the shadows. It's covert. Now Trump has brought all that out into the open more so, which I think ultimately, hopefully, ultimately, is a good thing, to bring it into the open, to make the world and make Americans see who we really are.
It's interesting you say that. Before I ask the question I was going to ask, it's interesting you say that, because I watched a fellow Kenyan broadcaster, because I'm going to call us what we are. We are broadcasting information. So this is what we are. Whether the mainstream wants to call us that, whether the boys club wants to include us in that, we don't care anymore. From an African perspective, we are bringing information, we're telling the news, we are broadcasters. So a fellow Kenyan broadcaster said that once the Epstein files were released, she believed that everyone would be up in arms and rejecting this whole system and protesting against it. But no, things continued as usual. So just to address that fact, that you think that Trump exposing America for what it is, what it's always been, is going to wake people up. But like you said, when you were working as an economic hitman, you were aware. At one point, you became aware of the harm that you were participating in causing, but you were struggling with removing yourself from it, because you could now be in the company of beautiful women, make great money, speak to presidents and all that. And I believe a lot of us, even if we're not doing that level of comfort and temporary pleasure type of thing, still that's keeping us from acting, right? We have a good home in regards to how it's built. We have electricity, right? Americans don't want to go to Africa because there's no electricity. We have internet. We're able to wear good clothes. We're able to go for dinner, out for dinner once in a while. So, oh my goodness, if I speak up about this system, I'm not going to be able to do that. Do I want to live in an African hut? You know, these things. So anyway, just something to point out. My question, and I know you're speaking of your upcoming book, The Art of the Steal, Trump and the Economic Hitman Presidency, but I'm in the process of reading another one of your books, In Touching the Jaguar. And in Touching the Jaguar, and you speak about confronting fear as the first step toward systemic change. We know colonization through experience, a lot of us, but also through reading books and through reading one of Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that fear is a big tool that colonization uses, and it weaponizes fear. How do entire nations on the continent, because that's our focus, how do those nations on the continent begin to touch the jaguar? And you can explain what touching the jaguar is, John, please.
Yeah, well, touching the jaguar comes out of the Shuar and Achwa people of the Amazon, who I spent a lot of time with. I just came back from there a couple of weeks ago. And they lived deep in the jungle. When I first lived with them in 1968, they were still hunters and gatherers. Now they can't do that anymore. Their populations have grown too fast, and their land has shrunk. But they have this concept that when something's blocking you, it's holding you back from doing anything, like fear, you go into a vision quest, basically, and that could be 5 minutes. People think of these as some sort of complex thing. No, it's just going in and you look at the fear and you see it as a jaguar standing on your path and blocking you from moving forward. And you know that in this vision quest, if you run from the jaguar, it'll chase you. But if you go out and touch the jaguar, it'll give you energy. It'll give you what the Shwa and Achwa people call arutam, which is the power of nature, the power of life, the power of the earth. The jaguar gives you that. And so when something's blocking us, we need to really understand it. And it's all about perception, always. Perception creates reality. There is no Nigeria, there's no Kenya, there's no United States, there's no corporations, there's no religion, except as people perceive them. And when enough people accept the perception, and in Africa, it was forced on Africans by the colonial powers of Europe, primarily, and later the United States. But, you know, going back to what you showed in your video at the beginning, but the perception is there, but there's a separation. And so what happens when you face that perception, when you touch it? And I think this is extremely important to Africa. And, you know, I don't have a lot of experience in Africa, very little. I have a lot of experience in Latin America, and there's similarities there, because you still, even though the oppressive powers, the imperialistic powers may be Europe or the United States, there's also collaboration amongst Latin Americans and Africans, the people at the top, the people that are living very, very comfortably. They do have electricity. Everybody else may not, but they do.
We call them the enemy within. So, okay, yeah, carry on.
Yes, but they're a very important enemy and powerful enemy. And at the same time, they've got this divide and conquer thing. So, you know, Nigeria doesn't really want to cooperate with Kenya. You know, it's like, because we might lose out somehow. It's not a win-win situation. It's a win-lose. And that's a perception. Africa needs to overcome that perception, as does Latin America. You have the same problem. Peru and Ecuador have been enemies for a long time. They share everything. They even share their languages, even their indigenous languages. And yet there's always been this tension. But the only way, I think, to resolve this is to change that perception, to unite. Look, Africa is the wealthiest continent in the world from a resource standpoint, and the poorest from a human standpoint. There's no reason for that except that Africa has accepted this mentality, yes, this perception. And of course, it's not just the fact that Africa has passively accepted it, it's been forced on Africa too, and it continues to be forced on Africa. But the only way, I think, out of all of this backing off from the precipice that we stand on, to get out of this quagmire, is for countries in Africa and in Latin America to unite, at least to see they have a common enemy. And I think that common enemy can be defined as the perception of the modern world. The Atra people call it the dream of the modern world. It isn't really the oil companies. It isn't really the mining companies. They are the symptom, but it's the dream of the modern world that wants oil and wants more minerals and wants it cheap. You know, like, okay, we need lithium, and we don't care if people who mine lithium are being brutalized and if they're essentially slaves. We don't care. We don't want to pay any more for our cell phones. God help us. So there's this mentality, but you get the resources in Africa. All you need is the will to overcome this perception and touch that jaguar of fear. Oh my goodness, if we do this, if we try to unite with our neighbor countries, they'll take advantage of us. If, you know, we can't really get rid of our leaders because there'll be instability in this country, and I don't know, you know, it just goes on and on and on. And of course, it's all also pushed by the colonial powers. And if you want a great education, where do you go to college?
To the West.
Exactly. And what do they teach you?
To be a laborer and to be colonized.
Yeah. And to be part of the colonization process. Go back to Africa and, you know, but work for IBM, work for Exxon, Mobil, whatever, you know, go back and, yeah, use your education to make life better for you and keep exploiting the country.
And to maintain America's interests. Go on.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's why they give us. That's why they take the brightest and the brightest out of Africa to America, basically, which a lot of people don't realize that
But
when they,
if they're being used, are they the brightest?
yeah, they don't realize they're being used. They think they're smart. They think they're coming to America for the American dream, but they don't realize that they are just taking out the brightest out of the continent to serve the
yeah, like me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I thought I was doing the right thing for many years, and I'm lucky that I saw something different. I think partly because I'd been in the Peace Corps, I had lived deep in the Amazon for 3 years with people, and I saw their side of it. And I had a mentor who was the head of state of Panama, who really understood this and foisted it upon me, and died in a mysterious plane crash that many people think was CIA because he stood up. You know, there's no proof of that, but in any case, and where does China stand in all this? What are your feelings around China's involvement in Africa?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with John that let's start with Venezuela. China and Russia are celebrating at the foolishness and arrogance of the United States. And they know they're going to destroy themselves. But me starting there is to show Africa, China doesn't care about Africa. China doesn't care about the people of Africa. China and Russia do not truly care about our well-being. China and Russia want to get to the top so that they're not controlled, so they can uphold their own or sustain their own well-being. That's their priority, and their interest is to first survive as a nation and their people to survive.
Proxies.
They understand they're not a nation if they don't have their people. So anything to maintain and sustain that, they will do, even if it includes throwing Africa under the bus, for lack of a better way of explaining. So for Africans to think that China is a friend, it would be one thing if Africa was moving towards China as a strategic move, but they're not doing that. They're doing it in a foolish way. Because if they were doing that, they would be calling the shots. So I'm not sitting here believing or encouraging our people to believe that China is a friend in that way, or Russia is a friend. They are enemies as well, but they are enemies that if we, again, get this mindset that John is talking about, that we've talked about several times, that we actually have the power and the leverage and we need to use it, then we should start using it to make these relationships with global entities in order to bring down imperialists and become sovereign nations truly, because we've never realized that since we were invaded. So if we want to have food security, if we want to have, as a collective, right, if we want to have good breathing air, we want to have less disease in Africa, we want to have less bombs, less killing, less raping, less flight of good minds that can be used to build Africa, we're going to have to start thinking of Africa away from, can we get help from someone? Can we get some? No, we are the ones who are going to have to get help from ourselves. Not China, not Russia, not the United States, not the UK. But if in this moment, for example, that we don't have the actual weaponry to fight these other nations, maybe we need to make a strategic relationship with China, with Russia, to help us build that in the transition towards our own sovereignty and power. That's how we should move. But no, they're not friends.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll comment as well. I completely agree with what Nduku is saying. Personally, I've never seen China, Russia, US, UK. None of them are friends, because historically, what's happened in the past basically tells us this, that most countries are on our continent for the resources. Look at what's going on in Sudan right now. The UAE are waging a proxy war in Sudan just to get the gold out. Whereas most people will go to Dubai thinking that Dubai has all this gold, not realizing that there's a proxy war that's happening in Sudan right now, where the UAE is funded to take the gold to UAE to fund that country. And these are the things that continue to happen in Africa today. So I don't see China as a friend. I don't see Russia as a friend. But like Unduku said, we need to be strategic in the kind of relationships we have. We have the resources. Let's use it as a leverage. And like John said earlier, we need to unite as a continent. Being bilateral or unilateral is not helping us. So if Africa can unite together as a bloc of 1.4 billion people, that's power. I don't know if you know, John, we got the AES at the moment, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. The three countries are aligned together right now. Just imagine if there was 10 of them together today, just 10 countries. That's a statement of intent.
Yeah, yeah.
And you cannot sneeze at that.
Yeah. And, you know, these things work. You know, you mentioned the EU. Well, it's worked for them, for Europe.
Yeah.
coming together. These are countries that have been were at war with each other for hundreds, thousands of years, really. And they came together. They've come together recently, and it works well for them. NATO, that whole prospect, and well, you look at the United States. We had 13 diverse states at one point, colonies at one point in the 1770s. And finally, even though they had many disagreements, they came together to get rid of the British monarchy. And so, unification works. And that I think is the only hope for Africa and Latin America too. And Middle East and Asia are different issues, but similar. And of course, China understands this. And I talk in my most recent books, including The Art of the Steal, about the 4 pillars of the Economic Hitman policy strategy. And they are fear, debt. We've talked about both of those to a certain degree. Divide and conquer is a big one. And the fourth one is anxiety over scarcity, to basically, hey, listen, Africa, if you rock the boat at all, if you don't let us in, if you don't, and China's saying the same thing, you're going to continue to be poor. You're going to continue to have scarcity. We can help you overcome the scarcity issue, which of course is total BS. But I will say, I agree with everything you said about China. And at the same time, China's economic hitmen are very smart. I taught at a business school in Shanghai, and I realized very shortly after I got there, what these very competent, intelligent students wanted was to have me explain about the mistakes I had made and the successes I had, so they didn't have to make the same mistakes. And China's people, they've done it, and they've got a really good story to tell. 10% economic growth for 30 years, bringing 900 million people out of dire poverty. It sounds great, and at the same time pointing out, exploiting the hatred that exists toward the United States and the resentment that exists. So China's economic hitmen are doing a very efficient job, but it's really important to get your people in Africa to understand what you both just said. And you've got the resources, you've got the leverage, you've got the power. You've got the power. You just got to use it. Yeah. I'm laughing.
Okay, John.
Laughing. Yeah. Not really laughing.
Yeah, I understand. It's frustrating. It's frustrating for us as well because we talk about this all the time. It's really frustrating, and I put it down to
the. You have to laugh.
Yes.
It needs you guys. It needs leadership like you guys to really get out there, spread the word, and inspire people. Change that perception. It's got to be a perception that you change perception and you change actions, and when you change actions, you change reality. So get that perception out there. Unite. And yes, you can pit China against the United States, and that was one of the things that I was involved in. But then it was the Soviet Union against the United States. So in Latin America, for example, when I was there, a country would threaten to side with the Soviet Union, and we'd go in and strike a better deal with them. And so you can do that, but there's a tremendous danger involved too, because if you get rid of U.S. debt or the World Bank debt and you take BRICS debt, then you're in the same problem. Ecuador just did that. It got rid of the United States and all of the World Bank debt, and it's taken in tremendous amount of debt from China, and now it's stuck with that.
So we don't want to go that way. Okay, John, what's your perception of capitalism? Capitalism is a driver of all this. What's your thoughts on, because we talk about capitalism all the time as evil, and I know you talked about the death economy and the life economy. If you want to link it together, because capitalism is a driver of all the evil that we see in the world today. What's your thoughts?
But also, as you answer that, to respond, Oladile, to the people, delusional brothers and sisters that we have, is there such a thing, John, as you answer that question, just to build upon it, is there such a thing as good capitalism?
Well, I'll answer that question first, and I believe there is good capitalism. I think what we have today is what I call predatory capitalism. And if you look at the definition of capitalism, it says that it's an economy where the means of production and distribution are owned by private individuals, not by the government. And it encourages competition, and really part of that subset is that you can't have monopolies. You got to have competition. So we don't have that today, not in the United States, not in most places. But so that's true capitalism. And I think that can be very productive. I've seen it, you've seen it. Local markets, farmers markets, they're highly capitalistic. My grandson, back when he was a kid, had a lemonade stand. That was capitalism, and much of what goes on in African countries and Latin American countries in these little markets that never make the statistics, but that's capitalism. You go in and you say, hey, I want to buy this necklace, like the necklace that you're wearing. I want to buy this, but I want it to be a different color. And the woman in the little market says, well, I don't have them that color, but wait. And she goes over and strikes a deal with her neighbor who does have it in that color. They cooperate. They're not trying to buy each other out. So she strikes a deal with that person and comes back and gives you the color you want, and they both benefit. That is capitalism. So, but what we have today is this predatory form of capitalism, which is just, gobble up everything you possibly can and get rid of competition. And that's evil. It's terrible. It's the root of our problems. So I don't know. The answer is yeah. No, I'm not opposed to capitalism, but I am opposed to the kind of capitalism that's controlling the world right now.
I'm not sure if your question was answered, Oladile. If you want to ask it again.
You're muted. Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about the life economy and the death economy. Can you emphasize on that? Because I heard you talk about that, and that's one thing I took away from the last time you came to us. That's one thing I took away from the broadcast: the life economy and the death economy. Can you just put that, explain that to us again, please?
Yeah. So the death economy really is based on predatory capitalism, and it has a goal of maximizing materialistic consumption and short-term profits for big corporations, maximizing short-term profits. Under capitalism, businesses have to make a profit, but they don't have to maximize it. They put some of it toward your employees, put some of it toward the future, put some of it toward developing new ideas and new processes that benefit the environment. But the death economy doesn't do that. And the death economy, with this goal of maximizing short-term profits and materialistic consumption, is taking us into a world of heavy pollution and environmental destruction. We're polluting and consuming ourselves toward extinction. That's exactly what we're doing. The alternative, the life economy, has the goal of maximizing long-term benefits for all life, not just people, but for all life. And from a practical standpoint, you pay people to clean up pollution, and you pay people to come up with technologies that'll corral all the plastic that's floating in the oceans and recycle it. You pay people to come up with better forms of energy. Solar and wind are just in the pioneer stage. They've come a long way. But this, how do you just suck energy from the air or the water? We know that technologically that's possible. You pay people to develop things like that. You pay people to come up with systems that don't ravage the earth. And, if you look at mining operations, and again, I speak about Latin America, where there's huge mines being built in Ecuador, primarily by the Chinese and the Canadians. And they're building dams, retaining dams that retain mercury and cyanide that's used in the gold mining process in these huge ponds that have these dams. And the dams are not built well. They're going to fail, but that can be changed. So you pay people to do things. We may need lithium to make all this happen because of batteries, and we're going to go solar. How do you get it, though, in a way that treats the people that mine it well, where they prosper too, and that takes care of the environment in the process? So the life economy really looks at these issues. And it's not about going back and living in grass huts. It's about making life better for all of us. It's also about redistributing wealth. So you have a lot more tax on the rich and so on and so forth, or somehow you work it so that the rich don't ever get that rich because money is reinvested into the system.
So, Oladile, I just wanted to respond. I put that up there because it goes with my response. Yeah. So, John, I don't believe what you're describing is capitalism, and I don't believe there is any such thing as good capitalism. And as human beings, and I know you've said this, right, who want to get rid of the death culture, which capitalism innately is, maybe we need to find a new word for this economic system that you're describing and that I'm describing. So I quickly, so that I could have a less emotional response to this and back up my stance, went to ChatGPT and asked it to give me a true definition of capitalism and what it is innately. And it says what capitalism truly is. Capitalism is a system of capital accumulation, the continuous reinvestment of money to generate more money. Its core logic is not simply trade, it is money, commodity, more money. MCM, money, commodity, more money. The goal is not production for need, and that for me is my biggest issue. It's not production for need, but production for profit, right? So what it innately is at its core, capitalism is extraction based. And that's what I always say. It depends on extracting surplus value from labor, land, or resources. It is innately expansionary. It must constantly grow. Without growth, it collapses. It's innately competitive. It assumes scarcity and organizes society around competition rather than cooperation, which is what you were talking about, and therefore it's not capitalism. It is innately privatizing. It converts commons, which we see them doing all over the place, right? Especially in Kenya, with Israel coming to buy land that is commonly Maasai land and making it their own, right? Land, water, minerals, even knowledge into private property. It is innately hierarchical. It concentrates ownership and decision-making power in the hands of capital holders. But ChatGPT didn't tell me this, but from my observation, my understanding, my experience, my reading, capitalism is innately exploitative. And therefore, you can never have good capitalism. So if we're going to be responsible human beings who destroy the death culture and who build a new thing, we need to find a new name for it. I don't know what it is yet. We Africans have
We
been
have
talking
we have a name for it. We do.
right? I know, right? But Ubuntu might not work for the Mzungu. Mzungu might not like Ubuntu. So I will leave that to the Wazungu to decide what they want. And if Wazungu see that the African way of being, Ubuntu is good for them, that's a plus for all humanity. So go ahead and borrow our ways and use them. Just remember to give us credit for it. So that's all I'm saying. We have Ubuntu. We are pushing for Ubuntu, which makes you as a person responsible in your actions and intentional. If I do this, is it bringing harm to my community? Okay, I'm not going to do this. If I do this, is it bringing life and goodness and prosperity and well-being to our whole community? Okay, so let's move and do this, and we do more of that. That's Ubuntu for me. Ubuntu also, because a lot of you watching us today think that Ubuntu is all about come together with me, my brother, and let's walk around smiling and laughing. No, Ubuntu is if we've built this community where we have good health, good food, happy children, education, and all that, if an entity comes and it threatens us, we have also a group in that community that can defend. If we are faced by violence, we have violence to meet it so that we protect that community. So I don't know what you think. Does the Mzungu want to borrow Ubuntu, John? Since we're building.
Yeah, no, it's and your definition of capitalism. That's one. If you look at Merriam-Webster, one of the traditional dictionaries, you'll find a very different one, like the one I gave. But it doesn't matter. It's semantics. You're quite right. I think we need a new term because capitalism has certainly come to represent exactly what you defined as ChatGPT saying. And I'm going to be lecturing. I think you're in New Jersey. I'm going to be lecturing in Princeton. I don't know where you are, but in next week or week after next, which is it? Next week. to a couple of the economic societies at Princeton University. And I'll be interested to see what their definition of capitalism is, because we'll be talking about these things, I think.
I might show up to disrupt that conversation. I might show up.
Good, please do. I wish you would. But yeah, so if you're in New Jersey, you can't be that far from Princeton. So yeah, I think what we do need whole new terms for all of this.
Yeah.
Terms that we have are so charged. Capitalism is one of them. Communism is another one. What does that really mean? Socialism.
All the isms are just.
Oh my God! Say that again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can come up with 1,000 definitions depending on who you want to, what point you want to make. But the concept that you described, Ubuntu, is beautiful, and I think that that is what we need to move toward. That's the perception. Yeah, so let's develop a new vocabulary around that and move in that direction.
Fantastic. So John agrees with Ubuntu.
I was
You heard
about
it here
to
first.
say to all the Wazungu out there. And for those of you who don't know what that is, go look it up.
Yeah.
John has said that Wazungu are willing to borrow our way for the sake of humanity. And they will give us credit, right, John? They will say that we learned this from the Africans.
Yeah. You know, you're pushing the point now.
Oh no, I'm not. Given our history together, I'm not. But go on.
let me put it a different way: is that let the Africans take the leadership in this, and make it their word, make the word go out to the rest of the world, and force the world to accept that and to see that it is an African concept. You don't need us to tell you it is. That's colonialism.
I agree, John.
You were asking
for
colonialism here. No, we're not going to credit you with it. You're going to take credit for it.
Oh no, I'm glad you said that, because even in saying that, you corrected me. You're right. I don't need the Mzungu to credit us. We will just go around saying that Mzungu lied. We taught him how to do that. Go on, Oladele.
Okay, John, I've got quite a few questions there, actually. I don't know if you heard about Mark Rubio's speech at the Munich Security Council. Is it this week or this week? Where he was talking about US and Europe coming together to recolonize Africa. So people are asking, I've had about 2 or 3 questions about that. What's your thoughts on that? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard the speech, but again, what is the specific question? And I should mention, we're already up to our hour, but I can take another 15 minutes.
Yeah. Just a couple of questions after that, yeah.
So
it was basically talking about the scramble for Africa, how Europe and America can get together to kind of recolonize Africa. He didn't say it that way, but in a way, that's basically what he was trying to say.
Right, we're saying the same thing about the Gaza Strip and Trump's new, what's he call it, the peace initiative. What is it? The peace. He's competing. He's got $7 billion already committed, he claims, and it's. I mean, it's colonialism all over again, with a new name and trying to put a new face on it. And again, I think it's partly Rubio is looking at competing with China. Like how do we get a leg up on China? So Africa becomes the battleground or the playing field for the world's great powers to play football on the African pitch, so to speak. I don't know what else to say, except I think it's just it's another expression of colonialism.
Okay, just 2 more questions. One more after this one. This one says, I really expect to believe that your conscience became your guide, John. That's from I really expected to believe that your consciousness became your guide, based on your experience and what.
I don't care what you believe.
That's what I thought when I saw the question. But go on, answer, then I'll give my thoughts.
My consciousness did become my guide. And it took a lot of help. Omar Torrijos of Panama explaining the real system to me and me resisting it and so on and so forth. But all that time, I'm very deeply fighting my consciousness. When I was a kid, there used to be a cartoon of Bugs Bunny, I think it was, that had 2 things on his shoulders. One's the good guy saying, oh, don't do that. And then the devil's over here saying, oh yeah, do it. Well, I went through that for 3 years. After I knew what I was doing was wrong, I struggled with it. I kept fighting my conscience. I kept pushing it back. But then finally, and particularly in this moment in the Virgin Islands that I mentioned to you before, when I recognized that I was a slaver, that conscience, I think the better word there, the conscience became my guide totally, and I then acted accordingly. But it took a while.
Okay, the last question. Thanks for
quickly. I brought it back, John. I'm still aware that you have 15 more minutes, but I brought it back because I wanted to say, because our people should learn as well, right? We should not be looking at John being here or at the work that he's doing as Africans. We should not be having that perspective. Oh, are we really to believe that John became conscious and this is why he's telling us? No. The way we should look at this is we want to know as much as we can about our enemies so that we can move accordingly, right? John is telling us from inside who they are, right? And he's telling us very importantly that their 4 strategies is fear, death, divide and conquer, fear of scarcity. We see these problems on the continent. We don't need John to tell us, but once he tells us, we can identify them now and know. So now we as Africans, once we get this information from John, we're not to dwell on whether should we really believe that he actually was conscious? That's a waste of time. We should go back behind closed doors and discuss, okay, they've been using fear against us. They've been using death against us. They've been dividing and conquering us. They've been making us look at life from a point of scarcity. How do we counter these threats? That's our focus, not whether John is conscious or good or nice and whether he came to an awakening. No, that's John's burden to carry and his people's burden to carry. Go on, Oladile.
Okay, thank you.
Beautifully expressed. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, she's definitely going to join you, man. So you guys need to be together. So, okay, the last question here. I'm posting it now. Based on what you know about finance in Africa, and looking at the debt burden today, what is the economic hope for Africa? In particular, it says Nigeria, but I normally put the whole continent together. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think I've expressed that is that you've got tremendous leverage. You own the resources that the world needs and wants. And the other continent that's second to you is Latin American continent, which is in the same position. And if each of those continents could get together, or if let Africa take the lead in that, and then bring Latin America in, and think of the power that if those two continents joined forces would have. But it doesn't even have to go that far. Just Africa, exert your leverage, and that's going to take overcoming all the cultural and traditional obstacles of tribal disagreements and countries disagreeing with each other and suspecting each other. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy, but it's worth doing. And it's in the long run, it's a lot easier than trying to deal as individual countries with China or the United States or the European Union. You've got to come together. If you don't come together, you're going to always be exploited. And I think that's a very important realization to face. Unity is the opposite of divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is such a powerful tool that economic hitmen have used for so long. You can go back to ancient China, you can go back to the Muslim invasions of Africa, and so on and so forth. Divide and conquer, turn this king against that king, and so on. Don't let it continue.
I think on that note, Unduku, have you got any other questions for John?
No, thank you. Thank you for letting us know from the inside of the belly of the beast what goes on in there, the indigestion and acid that is all over that place. But thank you.
You're welcome,
John. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for coming. We really thank you for the time. And guys, let's appreciate John and gives us an insight from the economic hitman's perspective. We thank you.
I've got a final comment, if I may.
Okay, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Go for it.
Well, first of all, I very much appreciate what you guys are doing, and please keep it up and get out there even more. But also to all your listeners, I would say, you and I, we all we're very blessed to be alive right now, because we are waking up to these things. The fact that this program is happening is a part of that awakening. And the fact that my books are being published, part of that awakening, and so many things like this. We are at an amazing time in human history where we're really looking at what it means to be human beings, being human on this planet. And so you're blessed to be part of that. Be an active part of it. And you're blessed, you who are involved in Africa and whatever aspect of African politics or economy or philosophy you're involved in, use that. This is an amazing, amazing time to be alive, because we are at a point in time now where we know we have to change if we want to survive as a species. It's a great honor to be part of this right now, and I'm also very, very honored to be part of your program. Thank you very much for inviting me on here. I look forward to another one.
Absolutely. So I'm going to come back to you on that one. I'm going to hold you to that. Guys, final words from me, guys. John's told us exactly what's good. Yeah, go on.
Did you check the private chat before you final words?
Oh, final words. Maybe we can invite audience.
You don't have to read it out loud. I could have asked it publicly.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can say bye to John.
Yeah. Okay. We can. Guy. Okay. Give me a second, John. Anyway, thank you for being on the program, and I'll reach out to you soon. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Keep up your great work, please. Get out there more and more and more and more.
Help us get out there. They'll bring us in if you lead the way. So help us. That's what the Mzungu can do. Help us get out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Help us get out there. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
You guys.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Cheers. Right. Yep. Bye.
So, you want to do that? Yeah. So,
okay, guys.
Go on,
go on. Yeah, you go, sis.
My suggestion to Oladele, because it feels like one of those African parties where it's been going well, and then all of a sudden the mother of the house comes and like, what are you all doing? Shut it down. And you have to end the party, and everyone is left like on a high, and you're like, where are we going to go next for a party? So here, if you would like, we can continue these conversations for the next 30 minutes. So
half an hour, yeah.
If you are on the chat and you feel like you are misunderstood, you didn't get to ask your question fully, I see our sister, I'm going to assume you're a sister at Kenya Sue Smart. You said that I should not presume to tell you what to do. You can come on and express yourself. I'm open to having that conversation as long as it's respectful, right? So if you want to come up, let us know. We'll give you the link and you can come up and we can have a continued conversation. In the meantime, while we wait for you to all respond, just say in the chat, I want to come up, and then we'll figure out how to get I think we can share the link publicly, Oladele. We don't have to let every Tom, Dick, and Harry come in. Tom, Dick, and Harry. Yes, and that exactly. Anyway, so we can share the link with you if you're interested, and I guess you can share, Oladele.
Yeah, I can do. But basically, okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, and we'll bring you up. So,
we just got another half an hour to go. So yeah.
Yeah. So Oladele, what were your thoughts as you share the link? What were your thoughts about this whole thing? And
it's what we already know. So, but just to hear it from John just puts it out there so people can actually hear it from the Muzungu himself. So, because me and you have been talking about this for so long, it basically reiterates and just reaffirms what we've been saying. Nothing's really changed. The fact that the Muzungu says it doesn't make any difference, but it's that we've been saying the same thing. And like John said, capitalism, you can see, is basically the key that's destroying our continent. It's destroying the world, basically. It's not just Africa, it's destroying the whole world. And we need to redefine, we need to basically, and he said to us, let Africa push the new dynamics. We can do that. But the only way we can do that as we Africans is to re-educate ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the key. Number one, re-educate yourself. The Muzungu education that you received is miseducation. Like Carter G. Woodson said, it's the miseducation of the Negroes. We need to re-educate ourselves. Define what Afrocentrism means to you. Build Ubuntu into it. Community driven. Where basically there's nobody loading nothing over everybody. And that's the key. And this is basically what we Africans need to do. And this is what we're not doing. As long as we keep going to the Muzungu way, because we've been educated the Muzungu way, we think those are the solutions. But all of us can see, as educated as we are, we're still the poverty continent in the world. So your education has not served. It's not served us. So why are we not doing different? And this is the challenge we face with Africans, because we're still stuck up or caught up in that education that we don't want to change, we don't want to move. And that's the work that we need to do. And this is basically what we've been saying through posts, through everything we're saying. We need to do different.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Sure.
And who wants to come up with? Who wants to come up? One or two people. I'm just pasting a link in the chat now.
My thoughts, as I say to John and to all the Wazungu who will encounter this, is we've all read Urugu. We all have an understanding, and we need to have an understanding of how this enemy, and yes, they are an enemy, has been moving throughout history with our people. But we also need to understand that for the sake of humanity and our earth and our ecosystem, that it is good to push Ubuntu on everyone. It is not we are forcing them. You can't force me to do what I want to do. You can't force me to follow that if I don't believe in it. No. It's about understanding that it's a principle that builds life and promotes the well-being of everyone. And so for our sake as African people, so that we don't have to invest much on defense, and so that we don't always have to be looking over our shoulder at who's coming to attack us, it would be very beneficial for us if the Chinese, the Arabs, the Mzungu, and everyone follows Ubuntu. It is our way. It is most definitely our way, but this is not about ownership. This is about survival. And it is in our best interest to make sure that this principle is practiced globally. Clearly, they forced us to step back, and we did. And in that time that we have stepped back, we have identified that their ways, all of them, the Chinese, the Arabs, the Mzungu, is not suitable for humanity. And we're looking back and saying, our way, despite its flaws, is suitable, the most suitable for humanity. And therefore, step aside Mzungu, step aside the Chinese, step aside Arab and all that. We are now going to take control, and we are going to lead the path forward for humanity's sake. This is what we are saying. It's a logical thing that you all need to understand. It's not about Nduku's telling you what to do. No. I actually did not know this until I came to know it and read about it and be in community with friends, and I didn't know what Ubuntu was. So this is not my way. It is a way that makes sense for the well-being of humanity.
And we live and learn. And we live and learn. And that's obviously what we're doing. And as every guest we bring up, as we read books, we just see that we can do different. We actually can do different. That's one of the biggest challenges facing. I'll say it because we're focused as Africans. It's one of our biggest challenges. It's just for us to rethink, reimagine, do things differently. You know, get away from your degree and your PhD and your DDD. Those things are just there for you to fit, to be able to fit into the matrix, to be useful in the matrix. It's basically not benefiting you long term. So that's what we need to do different.
So to Mercedes, I will say the only thing that you should be concerned about is maintaining your child's privacy as far as their face publicly being seen, because they are a minor. But come on. We are an African community. Part of African community is children, loud, quiet, energetic, playful. Come on. We are not CNN or NBC or MSNBC or Fox.
Okay, Babajide is there, so let's bring him on.
Yeah. So come on, Mercedes.
Hello, Babajide. I think you need to read your screen. What have you done?
Someone's sharing something.
Yes, Babajide is sharing. It's got this super duper screen.
He's a data our guy. He's our guy, so he's doing his work. Babajide, why is your screen showing us your screen instead of you? All right, you're fixing it. Okay, good. You're sharing probably, so stop sharing. All right, okay. He's aware.
Okay, Mercedes is here as well.
Yes, come in. As Africans, never feel embarrassed about your child making noise and all that. We are Africans, one Ubuntu. Our children are part of the community. We continue to work even as they make noise.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that is awesome. It is a pleasure to be here today, truly. To learn about this, knowledge is everything. We have been suppressed for so long. It's time to wake up and it's time to learn the whole truth. We haven't been told the whole truth for centuries, and we've been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's time to come together and unite as people, you know. The whole world needs to come together. So, sorry, I have a
But
loud dog.
yeah, I
So
can we
first of
can
all,
hear.
I was about it. I'm glad he said mom, mom, because I was about to say, is the partner?
Yeah, you too. You say hi.
But has he been listening to the conversation?
No, he's been playing. He's 3.
No,
Oh, okay.
okay.
So okay, I was gonna put him on the spot. I'm glad you're not on video because I was going to actually invite him to be a part.
Yeah. So actually, my kids are biracial.
Mm-hmm.
Their father is African American,
Mm-hmm.
and God, they're just beautiful. And what's
And
sad is that neither side accepts them. My
so,
side
what are
really
you,
doesn't
Mercedes?
like talk to them. Their dad's side doesn't really talk to them. It's crazy. So like they deal with that. People don't understand like mixed races. They deal with both sides. And my father didn't accept them for a long time until the very end, the last like 5 years. He finally shook my husband's hand, sat with him, ate with him. Uh, he finally accepted my kids. Like, yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I don't understand. I will never understand. See, my mother taught me differently. It was just
So,
me and my mom all my life.
so Mercedes, you say they're biracial and your husband is African American. What are you?
I'm Caucasian.
All right. So, what do you think
Well,
about this conversation?
recently, I just found out I do have 1% African. I'm from Cameroon,
Oh
so
yes, I
that's
Wait,
saw
kind of
that I
that
saw
interesting.
that comment.
hold
Yeah,
on.
that's kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting that, So
Does that
Oh
comfort you?
does that what?
Comfort you? Like, does it make you feel good that you have a percentage that's African?
Yeah,
So tell
absolutely.
me,
I
tell
think
me
that's
why.
awesome.
Tell me why, please. Tell me why. Tell us why.
I don't know. I felt like I've always been connected with the community. For some reason I don't know. And for all my life I've always been trying to find out, learn about the Black history and just everything. And I don't know. So yeah, it kind of does give me comfort. I don't all my I for some reason I have the gift of knowing and
Mhm,
seeing. When I was
mhm,
10 years old, I dreamt of my daughter being biracial with blonde hair, blue eyes. And here she is. So my name is actually Cherry, and she's my 5th generation cherry, as like the fruit, Cherry. So
mhm.
like, I don't know. So yeah, it's just
How do you
yeah.
feel? I'm glad that you say that because it's important for you as a Caucasian mother who has children that have African in them
Mhm.
to value that Africanness for the sake of the
Yes,
children. It's very important.
absolutely. It's
So
very
that's where
important.
Yes, that's where that goes to. So we're not going to have you come on and be like, oh, she's a Mzungu, we don't care about her. No, she is caring now for children that are part of our community. And back in the
Exactly.
day, for those of you who understand the history of slavery, those children, and today too, are considered Black. And back in the day, they would have been
Yes.
persecuted and oppressed as Black people. So it's important for the white people who are willing, as we move globally, to help them understand that if they are parenting or part of parenting our children, they need to identify both cultures and respect them
Yes.
and nurture the children in both characters. So hopefully for you, what this does when you're a part of or publicly a part of this community is you take the lessons that are going to help you
Hmm.
embrace the Africanness of your children and help them dig and ground themselves in that Africanness,
Yes.
especially if you see that what they, right, to protect humanity. So I'm glad you're here for that reason, and continue to make them feel beautiful. Their kinky hair is beautiful. The white nose
Yes.
is beautiful. Their African ancestors and what their African ancestors did is beautiful, and it's worthy of recognition. So that's what you can take from this, and I appreciate that.
Yes. And I
Thank you.
truly believe it's we all need to start embracing each other's culture, everyone.
Well, we're not going to embrace the Mzungu's culture because we've seen what it's done. That we won't do. But yes, you're welcome to embrace ours.
Well, I mean, like I meant like as like white people, black people, like white people need to embrace like who black history, like where they
Thank you.
come from, and
White people need to embrace Black
and
people's culture.
accept each other. Like that's the problem. Like they white people just, yeah, I don't understand it.
Is
I
a
don't
good
understand it. I don't
You
get
know,
it.
you know where we're coming from. Yeah, you know exactly where
I
we're
don't
coming
get
from.
it. I will
Thank
never
you.
understand it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks,
Thank
Mercedes. And I saw your
You're
comment in
very
the
welcome.
in YouTube. So now I know I put the voice to the chat now.
Yes, yes. It was a pleasure. Thank you for letting me come up here for a moment.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi guys.
How about you, Dave?
Yes, how are you? Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Your thoughts,
Yeah.
bro? How are you, sir?
Well, yeah, I'm very well. I'm very well. And you guys, well done. Well done. It was good to hear John, talk about capitalism, talk about how Africa needs to chart its own course. It chimed very, very well with my an article that I wrote, I think it was this that I published, I think this week, where I said, when economics was born, Africa was still enslaved, So yeah, it's all about Africa needing to chart its own path economically. The curriculum needs to change. Our economists are still looking at, or
Adam
using,
Smith. Adam Smith economy, man.
yeah, Adam Smith economics. I mean, that's one of, those are one of my core points. But actually, that article was inspired by an article in The Guardian where Westerners are now trying to rethink economics. So since the 2008 financial crisis, economists have been coming together to say the economic model we're running doesn't work. We need to rethink it. So it's now come to a point where it's beginning to gain consensus, and I'm saying to myself, hang on a minute, if Western economists are rethinking economics, and African economists are still relying on Adam Smith's economics rather, that was born in the heat of slavery, colonization, the whole works, then what excuse do we have? This is the time. This is the time for us to develop our own economics, work outside the economics of the global banking system, the global Federal Reserve System that was created in 1910 without our knowledge. What was going on in 1910? We were still being colonized. Four bankers, behind, they had this secret meeting, somewhere, on Jekyll Island, and within 2 years or so, 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. Yeah, and that Federal Reserve was created to protect the bankers. Yeah. Now it's that same system that all the 54 countries in Africa are now or have been running since independence. What's the difference? What difference has it made to the African economy? 3.2 trillion as of 2025, $3.2 trillion, 54 countries. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. You know, I've spoken to African or Nigerian economists. They are still running the Western economic curriculum.
Mhm.
You know, the economics textbooks are still talking about UK inflation, American CPI, UK CPI. Where's the Nigerian CPI? Where's the Kenyan CPI? Where's the indices that chart across our markets? And I'm not talking our markets as in supermarkets. I'm talking the rural market. Nobody wants to do that dirty work.
Oh, hold on, Babajide.
You know?
What are you talking about? The Mzungu knows best. We have to wait for the Mzungu to tell us where we're going to go.
Yeah. I mean, they know best. I mean, it's crazy. Honestly,
What
it's
is wrong
crazy.
with you? Didn't you get the memo? We always
Oh
wait until
well,
the
yeah,
Mzungu tells
yeah,
us where
yeah,
to go so that we can go there.
yeah. It's crazy. You know, it's very crazy because when I watch, like I say, I watch, you know, the business news that comes out of Africa, you know, Kenya and Nigeria in particular, and I just worry because they don't get it. You know, he talked about capitalism earlier. We on this program we've talked about foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is 100% goes in, 120% comes out.
Yep.
It's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose game.
Loser for us.
It's a
Yes,
lose for us, a win, 100 double.
Sorry,
for
it's
them.
a
Yeah.
win-lose. It's a win-lose
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
That's what I mean to say. It's a win-lose game. Africa would always lose. I mean, look at Nigeria for example. Nigeria is in a quagmire at the moment because they've been borrowing in the last 2-3 years, and not even the finance ministry and the House of Assembly can make out what's going on. Can you believe that? As of yesterday, they don't know what's going on with Nigeria's finance.
How could they not? How could they not know what's going on when they're basically copying and pasting systems that are irrelevant to our paradigm?
And that's what I'm saying. So you know, you go to the IMF.
But also, their
Go on.
focus is in making money so that they can go have drinks and go to parties and have big cars and go and look big with big stomachs, as Walter Rodney told us. Their focus is not to understand economics. It's not to understand how to improve their people's lives. Is to live large while doing nothing.
Yes, and they collect those loans from the IMF, World Bank. You know, largesse on it, pass it down the line for the unborn children, you know, of the continent. It's crazy. You know, I think some of what we need to start to maybe push as well is to have, because the how to change the curriculum dynamic is not easy.
No, it's not.
Think about it. We've been
it's not. It's not.
Let's take it from that independence point of 1960, right? Who's going to start the process of changing an economic or economics curriculum across all the universities? Who's going to do that when the mindset is still colonized? So can you
My
see,
brother, this is the work that we need to do, and we need to keep pushing. We need to keep talking about it. We need to keep pushing, and we need eventually at some point it's going to get through some thick skulls that we need to do something different. We have to keep need to hammer in it.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
people are listening. People are listening on this channel. I'm sure people on LinkedIn, there's education, whatever. We need to do different.
Yeah, I mean, just to let you know that people are listening and people are resonating. Yeah, I published that article on LinkedIn, right? And I hope everybody is listening. It's had the highest number of views I've ever had, almost 5,000 views. Now, when I look across the demographic of those views, the surprise is coming from the PhDs.
That should not be a surprise to you.
No. Well, you know, it's not a surprise, but you can see that it pricked a nerve. It pricked a nerve that, hang on a minute, you know, what's this guy talking about? You know, and I can see serious engagement with the article. You know, so that tells me that yes, I think everybody knows it's now time for us to move things forward in our, especially with Marco Rubio's speech, Mark Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum. I mean, that's almost back to back, telling Africans that, look, we're going to colonize you, for a second time. It's
And
coming.
by the way, Babajide, first of all, tag me on that post because I'd like to see this conversation or exchange that you're talking about.
Yes.
But by the way, that is what the imperialist system does very well. They are consistent and they repeat and recycle the message. And that's why we are so like, the messages that they send are holding us so
Yes.
firmly because they have a great way of they understand the mind.
Repeating it in different facets, different ways.
Guess what?
Repeat and repeat and repeat.
Nduku, to agree with you, guess what? You, Oladele, all of us have to do what? The same thing. The same thing.
We can't stop.
I used to wonder many years ago when the news cycle started to change, when cable TV started and all. I used to ask the question, why? I heard this news in the morning. Why are they repeating it again?
Yep. It's psychological. It's psychological.
So we've got to do the same thing. That's the bottom line. Once you get to the points that you want to get across, you just have to keep recycling it with your children, with your cousins, with your friends, with the public. Just create that knowledge pathway that would allow people to continue to evolve and change that mindset that needs Africa, that would make Africa make that leap to that change that we so desire. So I think
thank you very much, Babajide.
The work that you guys go on.
I'm gonna read two comments that were made so that we can discuss them.
Okay.
But also, just to say, for those of you who, after listening today, this will be your moment to say, enough, I'm not going to be a part of this death system. I want to be a part of this life system. Understand that it will not be easy. It will be only, despite the fact that there's some people like us you can connect with, and connect with us if you encounter that loneliness. But it's a lonely path to choose because the majority of people right now want this fakery that is happening around us and that's destroying us. So you will have heartbreaks, you'll have disappointments, you'll be called names, even amongst your own people, you'll be called names. You will go through it, but stay firm and continue feeding yourself with the people who build you up, the activities, exercising, dancing, singing, eating well, meditation, whatever you do, because this will not be an easy path. But this path is surely the one to take us to liberation, for sure. But okay, so one of the comments is this one. Those who, there are only two Oladele, so this one and another one, and that's it. Those who teach you hate of others say, I love you. Tell me how that makes sense in Ubuntu, right? And because this came up when Mercedes was up, and I'm assuming this is the hate for white people that we are addressing, our brother Michael Bakwesia. So here's the thing. We don't hate white people just because they're white people. Or we don't hate whiteness just because it's white. We hate whiteness and the idea of white supremacy because of what it's done to our people in history, because of what it's done to the earth throughout history, because of what it's doing to us all, to humanity today. It is taking up all the trees, reducing the chances of rain. It is introducing poisonous foods. And soon we are going to have a broadcast that is going to show you it has introduced poisonous vaccinations. It is introducing poisonous medication. It is poisoning the air. It is poisoning our natural way of being. And therefore we hate it with a passion, Michael Bakwesia. It's not just hate it. I loathe the idea of white supremacy. But even more so, I loathe it even more because it says it deserves humanity while me and my people don't deserve humanity. And it can do anything to us for its survival. Hell no. There's no amount of criticism that you'll throw my way for me to stop hating and loathing it. So that's why we loathe it. But when Mercedes comes up and says I'm Caucasian, But I love the fact that I found out I have some African, because I've been hearing about the African people. These people sound good to me, and the way they live sounds good to me, and the things that they promote sound good to me. And this thing you're calling Ubuntu, after I heard what you're explaining, it sounds really good to me. I want to be a part of it. And she's raising Black children. I will embrace that, and I will say to her, Mercedes, go and give love to those children. Have them love their African self. Teach them African culture. Ground them in Africanness, because we have seen Africanness will help them build humanity and bring well-being to humanity.
Yeah.
It's not about
Well,
rejecting who they are.
Yeah.
It's about the thing that will sustain us. So both of you, please opine on this.
Yeah, I don't think I can add more to what you've added. Basically, obviously for people who follow me, I know you see my posts every single day. I don't hate white people. I haven't got it in me to hate anybody. But what I hate, like Unuka said, is the system. And as long as you tolerate the system, then you're complicit to that system, because a system that's demeaned me, that's demeaned my ancestors, that's done all those untold damage to my ancestors, and it's still doing it to me today. How can you expect me to embrace it? And I can see the disruption and the damage that it's continuing to do. So I do not hate people. I hate the system, and the people who support the system, then that's on you.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
I agree with you completely, Oladile. And what makes it even more painful, if I can use that word right now, is that Marco Rubio speech. Because if you're feeling the way you've just described right now, today, and Marco Rubio can make that speech on Saturday, what does that tell us? Do you understand? It's telling us that we don't care.
We're not listening, bro. We're not listening.
We're coming for you. Do you understand? I mean, and I don't think we Black Africans understand what's coming.
No.
That is the truth. We do not understand what's coming. And before I continue, I think there's something I want to say about why somehow we found ourselves in this position that we're in today. And I'm talking about Black Africans, Black Americans, Blacks across the world. Now, I saw a video earlier that affirmed what I'm about to say now. It was a video where Jesse Jackson, sometime ago, was in a hall with Black leaders in America. Louis Farrakhan was there. And he was trying to convince the hall that the Black community has had wins within the system. And he was citing the fact that we're now working in, white establishments. We're now able to ride on the same buses. We're now able to use the same hotels, etc., etc. What's he trying to say? That because we're now or Black people, obviously I don't live in America, because Black Americans have now been given access into the system, it now means we're included. And Louis Farrakhan, when he was going to give his own take on this, was very, very spot on, in the sense that, so you think because we've now had to shut down Black schools, either shut down Black schools or there's no Black schools anymore, we're now going to join the white schools, we're now going into white establishments, no more Black businesses. So basically, because we've joined, or Black people have now been given access into the white system, you've had wins. I mean, that jumped out at me big time. That now brings me to the point I'm about to make. Mm-hmm. I've made a very, very I've made an observation that over the many years, the gains that we've made as a community were not consolidated. And because they were not consolidated, every 5, 10, 15 years you move, they're taken away from you. They're taken away from you. And that's exactly what's happened to Black Americans. All the gains of the civil rights, I know Trump presidency has taken everything away because they were not consolidated. And what do I
Is it
mean
not,
by
bro? Is that not
Yeah.
because we haven't got no structures in place to back it up, though?
Well, yeah, but that's what we're saying, and that's what I mean by consolidation. Okay, when Jesse Jackson and the guys were consolidating, they didn't consolidate properly. They thought by being in the same room with
Same room there.
you understand with the white folks, yeah, was consolidation. No, that wasn't consolidation, because if you go and if you look, I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on. I was telling someone today that there are a lot of Gen Zs now coming doing videos about losing their jobs, not finding jobs, as in Black Gen Zs in the US, in the UK, in Canada, not being it's almost like they're being excluded from the system. And I'm wondering, okay, what's going on? Why is this happening? So, and I could only put it down to the fact that because yes, we like to work in silos. I'm now working in Goldman Sachs. I'm a project manager. I don't care about the next person, right? And that's what collapses our system into the future, because the person who's working at Goldman Sachs, by the time they turn 40, 45, they get to a glass ceiling in the organization, they're not happy or they're let go. That's the end. The cycle starts all over again. Where do they go? Nowhere to go to. Nowhere to go to. So the bottom line is we need to consolidate our gains. We need to consolidate our wins. It's the same thing in Africa. Mugabe. Yes, Mugabe, Zimbabwe experienced a lot of sanctions, which people, and this is part of the consolidation. People did not, as in majority of African countries, did not realize that Zimbabwe ended up the way it did under Mugabe because of sanctions. Do you understand? You blame it on the leader. So
I want to propose.
Let me just end this on Mugabe, right? So Mugabe should have created more awareness about what was going on, and regardless of what was going on, consolidated his ideology and position at the time. Same thing with when Hundeyi came on your show the other day. He said he didn't realize that Abacha wasn't actually stealing the money, but because his government was sanctioned, he had to channel those funds through different people for Nigerians. For Nigerians. I mean, I'm quoting David Hundeyi here. Yeah. So these are the consolidations basically that we need to do as we progress now going forward. Africans, Black Americans, you need to consolidate your wins going forward. Nduku.
Yeah. My suggestion is you need to, because you introduced the term, it's not that you created the term, because you introduced it into the conversation. We need to have a broadcast just for this, Oladele, with Babajide. Talk about how do we consolidate the solutions we have, right?
Yes.
How do we think we can consolidate? And one that we can have publicly. Clearly, the strategies that we take on eventually for ourselves will be behind closed doors. But as we continue to spark imagination in our people and decolonize their minds and show them that things are possible, a lot of these conversations are necessary publicly, where we can reach you globally. So going on to the next topic, and then we are out. I said there were two things that were said in the chat I wanted us to talk about here. This is the next one. Oladele. Mbongi is an indigenous governance structure seen in many parts of Africa. Why has it not been used? And what Mbongi is, let me see actually if I can read it directly from our website. Give me a quick second.
Why is it not being used?
Give me a quick second. Shit. Excuse me. So I'll explain it. Let me see what it does open. Yeah, it's not opening. Anyway, I'll explain it roughly. Mbongi is the idea of bringing the whole community circle to discuss issues in the community and come up with solutions, right? Roughly, that's what Mbongi is. So my explanation to Bakra and you, the two of you can add, is Mbongi falls under Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the general governing structure that we are proposing. Ubuntu is going to ensure that you talk about education in an Ubuntu way, you talk about politics in an Ubuntu way, you talk about agriculture in an Ubuntu way, you talk about spirituality in an Ubuntu way, you talk about Mbongi in an Ubuntu way, which Mbongi falls under governance, right? How are we going to govern ourselves moving forward? And Mbongi is one way of governance. Mbongi is actually a part of governance, because Mbongi just talks about how are we going to deal with conflict, how are we going to deal with solutions, how are we going to deal with the things that we want to move on and take up as a community. You come together as a community, you talk about them, we all as a community talk about, and there's always a council of elders in that gathering. We talk about, okay, are these things, because we have committed to Ubuntu, which is life-giving, because it's the overall governing structure. Because we have committed to Ubuntu, which is life-giving, is what we are proposing in this Mbongi gathering, life-giving or not. And you all as a community will opine and look at it. What is it going to do to harm? What is it going to benefit? Is it worth taking on? And as a community, you'll say, no, this will destroy our people and it will destroy humanity. We're not taking that on. Or as a community, you say, this way of moving forward is going to build us. It will help generations to come. It will continue to maintain good health and all that. So we are taking it on. So that's what Mbongi is. So the way I see it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that Mbongi falls under Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the general governing structure. But my brothers.
Yeah, I'm just reading here. It describes a simple physical structure symbolizing one of the most important traditional African and political social institutions, a place where people dig up and consciously resolve community matters without a division or hierarchy imposed from outside the system. So that's basically what Mbongi means. And like Undugu said, it's basically, Ubuntu means I am because you are because I am. So basically it falls within the fact that we basically build our own systems within ourselves. Solutions, challenges, conflicts are resolved within ourselves. We don't have to look outwards.
I think we need to. I think we need to digitize this, right? We need to build a map, and we'll do this after we'll do this outside this program. We need to build a map, right? Because as Unduku has described, if Ubuntu is on top, then Mbongi will be the layer. So Ubuntu describes the philosophy. So within that philosophy, you then have the hierarchies. Okay, so Mbongi will form one of those hierarchies.
Don't call it a hierarchy, because we're moving away from that. Stay
No.
I get what you're meaning. That's why I'm making you intentional as far as language. It's a structure. Okay. Go on.
Yeah. Okay. Structure. Yeah. So the structure will be such that we have the whole framework. So you got the Ubuntu framework, if you can call it that. Then you have the various structures within that, which should form. Because I've always been in support of a situation where you have, or a system rather, where you have the local kings or local chiefs, party to the running of the country. Okay, so if you take Nigeria, for instance, you have, your governors and all. You should have at the local level, your obas, kings, and everyone involved in that governance structure, because with that, you then take, so there's this what do we call it now? What do you call it? The Yoruba philosophy of the Omoluabi. Agbajowo. You understand? I mean, you Oladele, you always talk about that. Imagine that being embedded into a governance structure in Kenya. I'm sure Kenya has its own. I mean, Nduku is laughing. What's
I'm laughing about something.
It's a private joke. You don't know, bro.
Okay. Anyway, so I think that's the framework is there, but like we've said, it's about consolidating the framework. Who's going to take it out there? Who are the economists that are going to say, okay, I'm going to put my money on this and I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to write about it. And let me just give you an example of the things I've learned, having been out here in the West for so many years. Majority of the philosophies that have built some of these Western countries, I mean, South Korea, South Korea is not a Western country, but you know what I mean. so Japan and all. These books were probably written like 50 years ago by philosophers sitting in their room and just thinking ahead into the future. Now, for Africa, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do too much of that, in the past 50 years. I don't know why, but it's only in the last maybe 5 to 8, 10 years that we've started seeing, more people coming to the fore, becoming authors and writing philosophies and writing to about culture and how we need to move ourselves forward. Now, because people are now doing that, the onus is now on our generation to say, okay, we've got Ubuntu, we've got Mbongi, let's write something about it, consolidate it, and put it out there. Put it out there as a curriculum. Let's test it. Let's test it, because we're not doing that enough. You can see already, just from the data, that the Western dynamics, whatever you want to call it, the economics, the capitalism, whatever, it's not working for Africa. It's not working. So if it's not working, the Africans like to quote this quote that, you keep doing the same thing,
over and over again,
and expect different results. It's madness. Yeah, they quote it a lot, but
they don't. But they're not willing to do the work.
They're not willing to do the work. So for those of us who are doing the work, we'll continue. And all we can do is invite everyone to come on board, join us, and let's push the boundaries of what we have. Let's push the boundaries, because the boundaries are being pushed. There are people out there now, like I've said, that are bold enough to say things as they currently are, as they're currently evolving. There are people coming out now to say, this is what's happening. We need to start to build our own structures. We need to start to define our own pathways. And it's going to happen. Trust me, it will happen, because like John Perkins said, he knows we have the leverage. But because, we haven't talked about the Epstein files, right? Just quickly. Epstein said something about Africa, right? That Africans don't understand finance. I've been saying that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't understand finance, we're not able to know how to leverage our resources. So, but I'll end there, and let's allow.
I'll say quickly as Noire comes in. I'll say quickly. I don't give two shits what Epstein thinks of Africans and whether we understand finance or not. Right. Also, what is finance? The way Epstein Epstein and his people learned about finance from Africans, and he best, well, if he is, as they say, or as some posts have been saying, roaming around in Dubai, he best check himself, because his people were taught by Africans about finance.
Of course.
Let them Zungu check themselves if they think they're going to be telling us how to move about finance and whether we know or not. The thing is, we have forgotten, and we need to remember. Noire, because we were heading out.
Yes. Yeah, Noire. Yes, I was gonna. Yeah. Okay. Hello, bro.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. How you doing?
Good. Peace, y'all. Peace. So, just to make a point in regards to the economic status of African Americans, what's often not discussed, and there needs to be more discourse around the point I'm going to make. So, the civil rights movement has been the main focus, and understand the term civil rights for civilians, right? Fighting for that in the 1960s. And there's a bit of recency bias. Now, the major movement, the Red Summer in the early 19th century, is when specifically African Americans lost their economic base and foundation. So we do focus on the riots in the 1960s, and rightfully so, because it's closest in time. You had the killing and the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Medgar Evers, John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. We can go on and on. Early 19th century, Black Americans are 60 years let's say 50 to 80 years right outside of so-called emancipation. Black Americans are establishing an economic base because there's a hip hop album from Onyx called All We Got Is Us. That was released in 1995. So all we had was us. And so economically, we were able to establish, as people know, some people may know, multiple Black Wall Street. So for people who don't know, when Blacks were free, they established towns. And because they had to work within themselves, they worked economically and spread their wealth. So Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, one example of that, worth maybe $1 to $2 million in 1921. What would that be worth in 2021 and 2026? Multiply this times 15 to 20 towns around America that people often discuss and talk about in Winston, in North Carolina, in Arkansas, in multiple areas around America. Currently, right now, there would be a different Black America. I'm not saying there wouldn't be any poverty or poor, but we have a middle to upper class, if not wealthy, society. And this is proven just based off of what was taken from us, with us being able to establish HBCUs, colleges, institutions, organizations. I'm mentioning the NAACP, but different organizations. One last point, the Freedmen's Bank. All right, so we need people to Google us. The Freedmen's Bank is where one of the banks where we were establishing and putting our money in as a collective. All right, the Mzungus directly and overtly stripped us.
They
stole this money from us, and this happened a multitude of times. Yeah. And so imagine, I don't want to say Dubai or anything like that, but imagine in America with a multitude of 30 or more plus towns. Had we been left to our own devices, that was economically stable. So Africans and Caribbeans that were coming in maybe in the 50s and 60s will be coming into upwardly mobile, stable economic towns or cities instead of poor, urban, dilapidated environments that happened in the 60s, 70s during white flight and the removal of economic stability from whites in these urban centers. And I'll leave it there.
So what you did, Noire, what you did, which is sometimes the importance of allowing time for a deeper conversation, and we should do this at another time, because it goes towards what I asked Babajide, consolidation. How does that look like? What you did is emphasize his point that he made before, which Bakra is making as well, that the mistake that Black people in America made was not understand their enemy and not even see them as an enemy and put up structures to protect themselves from it and defend themselves from this enemy. So now moving forward, we understand that we can build these structures. How are we going to defend them is the conversation that must be had. And we'll never have that conversation as long as when Duko opens her mind in those spaces and you all are shutting her down. I'm going to say right now, our priority, our number one priority is defense. And I am what to do.
Yeah, I agree. Because basically the enemy within and the enemy outside are working together. And how do we counter that to protect what we have? And that's basically where we are right now, because we have all the solutions. But if we haven't got the structures and we're not defending the gains we have, like Babaji just said, guys, we're not moving forward. So, guys, go on, Babajide.
I just want to, comment on Professor, I think Burge. His name is
Burge. Yeah, but call him Professor Mari, because that Burge, he's done a movie on that Burge, and that Burge needs to. But baby.
Professor Mari.
Yes.
Your contribution is just very, very, very correct, very apt. It's chimed into what I mentioned earlier, and you mentioned Tulsa. I think Tulsa is Black Wall Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
It
is. It is.
So So even though I talked about people not consolidating, then obviously they tried to consolidate, but they were burnt down. They were forcefully wiped out, and that happened in numerous places in America. A lot of thriving, communities were destroyed. So I'm not blaming. I'm not. I mean, as you probably can tell, I'm not blaming the Black Americans. But all I'm saying is we need to be smarter.
Yeah.
Going forward now, we need to be smarter in how we manage ourselves and consolidate at the same time going forward. Because without consolidation, they just keep on changing the goalpost. The goalposts will continue to change as we move every 5-10 years.
Yeah. And knowing what we know now, and all the things that we're talking about now, that's where we need to be very, very strategic in what we do. We know the intentions. We know the intention of the Muzungu. We know exactly that they don't want to see us progress.
Yes.
Anything they do, they're gonna put spanner in the works of what we're trying to do. So how do we deal with that?
And everything we do, I think everything we do now mustn't just stay in our focus must not just be in the Black people in the West. We need to also direct it at Black people in Africa. That is the biggest challenge that we need to focus on, because that's basically where the things that need to happen. Yes, and let me tell you where, because I think there's an awareness growing in Nigeria as well now that, look, we cannot continue to allow these puppet rulers or leaders, so the president, the House of Assembly members, etc., to rule us to a point where we get recolonized. I think that awareness is beginning to grow. Now, people like us need to sort of fire that or fuel that flame, or help create that awareness, so that people like you and I will be encouraged to join politics. Because the fear that people like you and I have in Nigeria is, they say, the Nigerian politics or Kenyan politics in particular, Ugandan politics, it's dirty, you want to go and die, your mom will tell you want to go and join, don't join politics, so they'll kill you. Yeah, they'll kill you. But if you die for the right cause, your name will be on a placard somewhere 10-15 years down the line, but Uganda will be better for it. Kenya will be better for it. Nigeria will be better for it. This is what we need to be preaching.
But
we need not be afraid to die for the cause.
Yeah.
But I'm glad African Man said this, and I honestly, like, it's 2 hours, 1 minute, 27 seconds and counting. I suggest we have a broadcast just for this consolidation, and then talk about all these things around.
Yeah, we can do it. We'll arrange a time for this.
Yeah, as African Man said, this right here is the problem. And even Babajide, as you speak, you're not even noticing in how you're saying that this is a problem. It doesn't matter whether we join politics or not, as long as we are building under this governance structure that we have right now, because the governance structure that we're all living under now is innately built to be racist and stop us from living our full humanity. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, there's a comment there, guys. You want to speak to this before we go? I think we need to speak to this one.
Well, can we just agree, Nwari, as you continue, can we just
go?
Oladele, can we just agree that we are sitting here for a bit? Like, can we just all be comfortable in that, so that I stop being nervous that we're taking too long? Can we agree that we are going to bring in the comment and just take our time?
Yeah, exactly. So there doesn't need to be absolutely any focus as far as here. Here is over with. This is done. The states are done. The focus needs to be the continent. But being subject of Eurocentric banking and all of that, these were early, meaning in the early 19th century, when we lost those resources, right? Because there wasn't a serious military in place. The mindset was constantly a Negro mindset. It was total integration into Eurocentric culture. So it actually was becoming a European just with black skin, as the African term is coconuts. So because you had that, it was never really a true, I would say, it was a sleeping on the fear of those institutions being burned down. These institutions actually helped to fund poor whites. Case in point, my family who owned land after the Great Migration into the Midwest, my family owned land in Oklahoma and still does. And my grandfather and father tell stories of helping out during the Depression, helping out other whites who lived in that area who were begging for resources. And so this John Brown, kind of, we are familiar with John Brown, this white man who pretty much brought blacks and whites together to fight against the oligarchies during that time. This was a fear of a sort of integration amongst the poor whites and poor blacks at this time. So we're talking revisionist history a bit, but it's almost like a what if, right? What if we were left alone and left to our own devices? There would have been possibilities. Yeah, we didn't have a military to protect our institutions, but let's say we were. So that's theoretically what we're talking about. But just to end, this is over. The focus needs to be someplace else, or fall or collapse.
Africa.
Place.
Okay, we got this question here. I had to bring this up.
Yeah.
If you're still operating within the system, but still thriving, how is that any different than countries in Africa thriving under neoliberal policies of the West? Who wants to go first on that one?
I think I'll go first on this one, please, if you don't mind. And the reason I want to go first,
keep it to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll try. The reason I want to go first. The reason I want to go first is that person said, it says,
thrive.
How is that any different than countries in Africa thriving under neoliberal? So which of the countries is thriving under neoliberal policies of the West? Our currencies are in the doldrums, okay? The currencies of every African country is devalued at least 70% in the last 60 years. All. But they don't know that. They keep on looking at year-on-year currency fluctuations to say, oh, the currency is stable this year, or it's unstable next year, etc. No, you've been wiped out. You're in a state of perpetual poverty. Now, what this person is referring to as thriving, and please, with all due respect, there's no attacks here, right? What this person may be referring to is I always talk about the 3% in Nigeria, for instance, 3% informal economy, formal economy, as against 97% informal. Yeah. So that wealthy bourgeoisie that sits in that 3% that we see, every day, the Dangotes, the Femi Otedolas, the Strive Matsiyiwa, all those guys, are the ones we're seeing and we're thinking Africa is thriving. Africa is not thriving. Africa is in severe poverty. If only 1% of 3% is thriving, you can't say Africa is thriving. So I beg to differ on that question. And I have the data to back it up, but obviously we don't have the time to look at that.
Okay, thank you, Wajide. Nwari, what do you want to say to that question? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think there isn't any really thriving within the system in Africa. Even with BRICS coming through with Russia and China, unless there's a total collaboration with BRICS with certain economies in Africa, but that's not even something that, because again, this is all theoretical, hope, right? Like we would rather, susus or collectives or figuring out barter and trade systems. But having something that's so well established and is part of the bloodline, this capitalism is part of the bloodline. We tend to forget that this started in Africa before it came to the Americas. We're often saying, hey, African Americans and making references as if, these economies and slavery and everything has started, in the Americas. Europeans have come down into Africa and started to integrate their systems, not even just through slavery, but their economic systems, as well as their currencies, before modernity, before, the 15th century. So we have to look at it from a framework of totally eliminating a system. It sounds like smoke and mirrors. It sounds like hope. It sounds like a prayer to, the white Jesus. But I think we have to take a look at how do we begin to redefine what our economic systems can look like from a specific framework. What does that framework look like? I don't even think we're ready for those conversations, or even having those conversations, because the bloodline of Western capitalism runs through all of us. So,
Yep.
I'm very, it's not even pessimistic. I don't want to see capitalism flourish on the backs of, children in the Congo, on the backs of, we can go on and on. So I'll leave it there, because I know you guys are short on time.
Do you want to go first? Me?
Okay, you go. Yeah, and I'll round up from there.
Thank you. So I was going to say exactly what Nwari said. This person who thinks they're thriving, well, let me be a good sister. African man, let me be a good sister. No, let me actually check myself and be a good sister. African man. So African man, you're not thriving. And the only way you would see yourself as thriving in this system is if you're looking at the picture as an individual or individuals. But if you look at the picture, and I'll give you just America, within the United States, you're not thriving. You're not, because I will suggest to you, African man, take a good weekend in St. Louis and you will see that you're not thriving. Take a good weekend in Newark, and I don't mean by the Penn Station where it's all nice. I mean inside Newark, and see how you're not thriving. Oh, actually, don't just go to the Penn Station. You'll see the homeless people there in the middle of freezing winter. You're not thriving.
Skid Row, California, Hollywood, Skid Row.
Go to the school, the elementary schools in Elizabeth, and volunteer for one day to be a teaching assistant. You will see how much you're not thriving. You're not thriving in the United States. My fellow Black people, you're not thriving. I don't care how many Shaqs you have. I don't care how many LeBrons you have. You ain't thriving. Okay, now that is clear, we're not thriving either. Neoliberal policies. And for you to put thriving and neoliberal together, that's an oxymoron as big as I've ever seen.
Nduku, he just replied, he said, I don't believe that they are thriving. I put the word thriving in quotes.
Yes, you did, African man.
Yeah. He got us there. He got us there.
No, he didn't even get us. We didn't read carefully. So, African man, I'm going to ask, why did you ask this question? Because now we now understand. Exactly. African man, why did you ask? Quickly, please tell us, why did you ask this question? Thank you for that. And this is the thing, like, we can be in conversation and he can say, Nduku, come back. That's not what I was talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So
I have to step away from
it's good, but
No worry.
Good, yeah.
Go on, Bajide.
Tell us about the talk. Why did you ask the question? Go on, Babaji. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just going to add to what I was saying earlier about Africa, and its neoliberal policies. I mean, we have to come up, just like you like to use the word Afrocentrism. So we need to have our own Afrocentric policies. I mean, I've called that the African economic system, or Kenyan economic system, Nigerian economic system, but it has to be a collective, which is why I like to use the term African economic system that can work across all of Africa.
We can call it Ubuntu economics, even better.
Yeah, whatever. But the thing is, it can work across the 54 countries. Imagine using agriculture, resources to set the standard across all 54 countries. So first you deal with food. Everybody must have food to eat. We already have the capacity to do that. Then on top of that, you put resource mining, and you start to layer it, and you manage it like that. Then you leverage your resources, because that's the key thing that African leaders don't know how to do. They think they always have to go to the capitalists for foreign investment. No, you don't.
You don't.
You don't. I mean, do you know? Okay, let me tell you a story. It's in the public domain, right? I think in the era of the 2008-2010 financial crisis, there's a big American bank. I won't mention their name, right? What they used to do was they'll go to Nigeria, buy the Nigerian oil cheap, right? It was so cheap that they will put that oil in ships and allow the ships to sail the world until the price is right. I mean, how bad is that?
And that right
Until
there is
the price
capitalism.
right.
Artificial scarcity.
That right there is capitalism.
You know, Babajide, sorry. You know, my dad used to be a businessman. I'm sorry to say this, but my dad used to be a businessman, and it was a successful one at it. But when I was growing up, I didn't realize what he was doing. You know what my dad used to do? May his soul rest in peace, wherever it is right now.
Hide the sugar in the back and make people believe there was no sugar until the price.
My dad built a warehouse in our home.
Yes.
So the sugar, whatever, it would store it there, and he would leave it there for months.
Yes. When the price drops, he releases it.
It would bring it out.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what he was doing that. Now I'm not saying what was now. I see exactly what he's doing.
Now, and that's what Africa needs to do. Africa needs to bring out its gold, build the vaults, store the gold in the vaults, and just sit on it. What we need to do after that, I won't say it publicly, but if any of the leaders wants to reach out to me to see what we do, with those resources that will make the economy tick over, and I'll just give you a hint, please. No. I'll give everybody that's watching a hint.
Please, don't take that call.
In 1910, I told you the Federal Reserve was created. Now, in 1910, was America going anywhere else for foreign direct investment?
Nope.
Exactly. They did everything internally.
Yep.
You've seen there's a docu-series called the Men That Built America, right? I'm not sure you've seen it. It's on Amazon. Yeah, so they talk about the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, all these big names. All these big names didn't go out for foreign direct investment. The investment came from within.
Yeah.
So what am I trying to tell you? We even have more resources internally that we can use to grow our economy. I'll leave it there without giving too much away.
Okay, there's another one here. Do you want to talk about this one here? Because this guy's back.
Let's see. So, if Black Americans were thriving, under what system were they thriving? It wasn't Ubuntu. It was the same capitalist policies that afforded them the ability to build. Okay, so let me speak.
Hold on, Babajide. For the sake of time, you choose. Once I make this statement, you can choose whether you want to. There's no need to address this question. There is no need to, because we established we are not thriving, and African man agreed that they were not thriving. So why are we putting time to answer this question?
Okay, let me just answer it quickly. I think I see what he's trying to allude to. So we talked about Black Wall Street earlier. It was thriving, but do you know why it was thriving? It's simple, because it was Black Wall Street, and that was actually thriving.
Money cycle within itself.
Yes, it was thriving. It wasn't thriving under neoliberal policies. That's why they burnt it down. It was thriving.
No, it was under neoliberal policies.
It was under, but we formed. They formed their own communities, right?
But
so
because they were still under neoliberal policies, is why they were taken down. Because when they were burned and these white people went to the court and said they did this, the court that was racist as hell took the white people's position and said, "Black people, tough luck."
Yeah. But think about it. Black people operating in a neoliberal environment were able to carve out their own, I don't know what they would have called it then, Ubuntu, within that space, and they thrived. They thrived. They had their own shops. They were doing everything for themselves. They had tailors. They were making clothes. They had everything, and they didn't like it, and they burnt it down.
True.
All right. And this was for people who want to look into what that is. It's called the Red Summer. All right. And if you're familiar with Marcus Messiah Garvey, he writes a famous book called The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. And Garvey now begins to understand he already understood the importance of segregation. We began to actually meet with, because of this Red Summer and these cities all over America where uprisings began to happen, based off of someone lying on another black man, saying this black man looked at a white woman, or R-word raped a white woman, or whatever, and then a riot would ensue. In most cases, this happened because of the economic stability that some black systems were having that were better than poor whites in some of those other rural areas. And this actually led to the beginning stages of the Ku Klux Klan that developed. You're now also leading into Reconstruction that begins to happen. Blacks in South Carolina have established, political acumen, and representatives are being put into this government system, into the the U.S. government system. And so what then begins to happen is the removal of Black power politically and economically, not just through a government system, but through their vigilantes. And so if you want to totally dismiss capitalism, and because of this integration, which we had no choice, being in so-called stolen white America, that's all we had. But we were able to build and establish an economic foundation with banks, institutions, museums, libraries, whatever you want to have in the early 19th century. So yes, we didn't have the military to protect it. We were coming back from World War I. We had, whatever little shotguns that we had to fend some of these people off. But it's a weird thing to kind of frown upon. I wouldn't necessarily frown upon it. It was, we were given the cards that we were dealt, and we had, a little bit of value and success in that. Actually, not even a little bit, a lot of success coming from chattel slavery. Okay, we have to remember what specifically chattel slavery is and what we were able to develop within a 40 to 50 year period. And that didn't sit well with the white establishment as well as poor whites. What is it with these Negroes having land and horses and houses and more than I have? We can't have that. And so, the government, sent their henchmen out and burn, a multitude of these towns and places down.
But that's what's happening. That's what's happening all over again now.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's happening all over again. I mean, you look at the UK, and it seems like they're saying, there was a time, or there's something within the tax system that's called IR35. So you got IR35. So it's where you're working as a consultant, yeah. And if you're doing the job, so if they bring you in, and the job is akin to what a full-time person can or can do, yeah. So where you're sitting at the desk 9 to 5 every day for 5 days, yeah, then you will fall within what is called IR35. That means that you'll be taxed as you get paid. So PAYE. Okay. Now, before, it never used to be like that. You'd be taxed by your limited liability company. Okay. And this journey started, I think, 2014, 2015. And why do we think it started? For the same reason Professor Omare just gave. It's because who are the ones doing the contracts? It's the immigrants. They're the ones earning the big money, the 200, 300, 400, 500 pounds a day, 1,000 pounds a day. All of a sudden, they're buying up, big houses in the outskirts, of towns, driving the biggest cars, and it started becoming a problem. So, these guys are not paying their taxes, so we're going to start, sanctioning them. Why is he getting paid 1,000 pounds a day for a job that it should be a full-time job? Right? Fast forward to 2026, most of those roles are being cancelled, if I can put it that way. So they're now turning the work space into, you know, more of a permanent position environment rather than, you know, employing consultants, all for that reason. All for that reason. And it's because in those early days of technology and you know, IT, telecoms, call it what you want, in those early days, majority of the workers, if I can put it that way, were immigrants, whether it's Indians, Nigerians, Kenyans, even in the UK, you know, the multitude of them, you know, were immigrants, and they were doing very, very well. All of a sudden, fast forward to 2020, well, in short, post-COVID, everything started going downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm gonna
now
also say,
you're earning, you've gone back to an era where, because salaries haven't increased in the last 10, 15 years, right? So you're earning, say, 2005 salaries, yeah, full-time salaries in 2026. How?
It's value. The value is just ridiculous.
yeah. But
And
as
what
we
professor just described it, you know, he's described something that happened in the early 1900s, and it chimes, you know,
With what's happening now.
with what's happening now.
Wow.
Yeah, but also just as we say, talk about immigrants as the labor force, let's not forget that way before the immigrant steps foot, the black immigrant steps foot in the United States, the migrants, formerly enslaved Africans, is who is the labor force for a long time in the United States.
Yeah.
They build the United States. They build the bridges, the
Yes.
roads, and all that.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
exploited, they are abused, they are tortured, which is, and
Yep.
we can talk about that also as a different broadcast. And I do
Yes.
want to invite, and we'll talk with Oladile Khalil Mohammed since I'm about to wrap up his book, and we can talk about that, right? But Oladile,
Yeah.
this thing about the Black Winter, quickly comment. The thing about the Black Winter, maybe we look at it, and I know Traore spoke about this, or at least one of the AI translations that say that he spoke about this. And because there's another one that has come out with him saying he doesn't like that people are using AI and misquoting him. So whatever that situation is. But if he spoke of the Black Winter as we saw it in the video that has been shared, I suggest that we stop looking at it as a Black Winter and start looking at it as a Black Spring. Because for a spring to come, there has to be a winter that has death for growth to come. And if we focus on it as a Black Spring, we will be looking at ways to build, knowing we've been dying. We've been in the winter. There's no Black Winter coming. We've been living it for years, hundreds of years. This Ma'afa has been the Black Winter, and therefore the Black Spring is coming. How are we going to build ourselves to get to the Black Spring?
Yeah, I love how you spun that around. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, so positive.
But that how is the most difficult thing, because the one thing I have learned, and you know, we have to be very, very honest. Yeah, there's one thing that they'll never tell you in business, but you'll see it anyway. But they'll never say it out loud. Now, I noticed that sometimes we Black folks think, oh, I can just work hard, raise some money, and go and start a business, and I'll thrive. No. What I've observed is that majority of the, you know, white businesses that thrive, money gets thrown at them.
They don't work.
Money gets thrown at them, and like I said, the examples are out there. Twitter is an example. I mean, you know, I'll use them. It may not be a good example, but I'll use them. Twitter, Facebook, Google. All these organizations had money thrown at them. Now let me bring it
Amazon.
Let me bring it home. The National Health Service in the UK. The National Health Service, if it didn't have the kind of money thrown at it over the last 20, 30 years, do you know it could easily have been bankrupt?
Yeah. But the money's money. There's steady money all the time.
Steady money. So you see, they're throwing money at it. Managers are seemingly thriving. They're doing well. They're being promoted and all. Everybody outside, looking at it from the outside, is thinking, "Oh yeah, this organization is doing great." You know, oh yeah, oh I can go and set up the same thing in Nigeria or Kenya. No, you can't if you don't understand the model behind it.
Yeah, these are the #1 welfare recipients. They, want to put us as people of African descent as welfare recipients in the Americas and the West, where you have these type of bailouts, economic bailouts, for these corporations and companies as the biggest welfare recipient.
Yeah.
We're going to see if we can find for everyone the original Traore account. We're going to ask and see if we can.
Yeah, I think I've got it. So I will send it later on. I'll put it in the chat later. Somebody send it. Somebody send it to me.
He has an
I have. Yeah, somebody wants Burkina Faso send it to me, so I'll put it out later on. Yeah, I'll find it.
And if you are taking action in translating and putting out the translations, please do it responsibly. Don't put out anything that is misrepresenting what he's saying. Please.
Tyrone, I'm gonna say capitalism is a problem. It is a big problem. We need to get away from capitalism. It doesn't matter how you dress it up. Capitalism is basically, putting the wealth in the hands of a few people. We're talking Ubuntu. That's the way forward. Capitalism is one of the big. You can see what is doing to us in Africa. I'm just saying that. Just you put it out there. Capitalism is a big problem.
Just to hit that on its head, Dele, the data, right, tells you that if you look at where Africa is today, for better for worse, right? If it was Ubuntu we were practicing before colonization, it still worked for us. If not, we won't be here.
Yeah.
Do you see that? They came, King Leopold came, he did what he did. The Germans came to Namibia, did what they did, but we're still here. Why? Because we have that community structure that still works for us at the lowest level.
Yeah.
This is the data we need to take away. That
we look out for each other. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And it works.
Always looked out for each other,
and
we
works.
That. But we're losing it, and we don't want to lose it.
We don't want to lose it. Yeah, I agree.
Wow.
Okay, guys. It's frustrating when we keep talking about it. We keep picking the consciousness, and we keep doing what we're doing. We have to keep hammering it home over and over and over again. This is who wants the final comments before I go? Baraji, the final comments from you.
I think like I've said, and like Nduku has put forward, we need to start to teach people how to consolidate their gains, and it starts from individual gains too, not just global gains in terms of the community, individual gains. So if you're on a journey and you've made a gain and you're not sure how to navigate, from that point forward, reach out to people, family, friends that that can help, not just anyone. Consolidate those gains so that it can't be reversed in the future. That's what I'm realizing as we go. And that's the advice I'm going to give. Consolidate your gains wherever you can. If you bought a house and you can consolidate your gains at some point, if you consolidate the gains and keep moving. If it's employment, you can't just sit tight and say, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be here for the next 40 years. No, consolidate your gains, move forward. If you're going to advance your career, move sideways, whatever, keep consolidating and moving forward. That's the lesson I've learned.
Okay, thank you. Nwari, final words from you, please.
I want to be optimistic as possible, but there's a reality that we have to speak about, right? There's a rapper, and I can't think of his name. I think it was Big Mike. I can't think of his name right now, but he did somewhat a real sociological experiment where he wanted to do, I think it's Big Mike, all black everything, right?
Yeah.
Meaning everything that he purchased, he wanted it to come from some type of black entity, black company, black entrepreneur, for everything. We're talking from toothpaste to paper clips to toilet paper to sneakers to clothing, electronics, whatever it may be, cars. And I believe it was for, someone would have to look it up. I don't know if it was 6 months to a year and a half. But he found,
that's been a while back, Kenwa, right? That's been a long time ago. I remember that.
I would say it was right. It was during COVID or right before COVID.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. during COVID or right before COVID.
So is Killer Mike the same as Big Mike?
Killer Mike. Killer Mike.
Yeah,
So
Killer Mike. That's the one. Killer Mike. I saw that. It was way before COVID.
Yeah, you would think I wasn't hip hop player by
I haven't seen
saying his
that.
name wrong. Yeah.
Take a look. Take a look, Babajide.
Yeah. But what he found was that it was virtually impossible because of the lack of economic infrastructure and institutions that we do not have to maintain a day-to-day life by only purchasing Black products, so to totally support ourselves. So please don't misconstrue what I am saying. I'm not saying do not support Black people, Black companies, and institutions, but it's adding to the point that I made earlier in regards to these institutions being torn apart 105, or 10 years ago, where by this time I'm pretty sure we would have had, if we were left to our own devices, America would be a different economic country. It would be a different place for Black people, and we probably would have had, toothpaste companies and paper towel companies and huge if we want to talk about, I don't know, purchasing furniture and on and on, not just clothing and not just entertainment, not just sports and entertainment. So I think that as a collective, we should do the best that we can to support Black businesses and Black people. There's also a reality, that's why I brought up with Big Mike, whereas there's so many things that you need from this mouse, for your computers, things that we don't think about when we want to strictly purchase all Black. So that's the point that I'm making. I'm hoping that it's not a negative or pessimistic one. I hope that it's just a realistic one.
But can I add? Sorry, can I quickly just add this? And let's talk about it. Let me tell you why I want to add this, because of what you just said, right? Now, how do you explain? And this is for Nware. How do you explain what you've how do you explain what you just said as it relates to when the Black business is now thriving? Yeah, that Black business now gets offered 100 million, 200 million to go and sit down, and it gets taken over.
Yeah, and that happens a lot.
And that's the end. And the example in question is BET.
Yeah.
You have anything to comment on that?
Well, these acquisitions that will continue to happen in our current times, right? If we want to use BET as a model, we know what BET represented if we're talking about actual media. I don't want to make any statements around that. I just don't know that using that as a model or any type of industry, Black people were never really at the top of the economic order or the pyramid. When you understand these, not you, or people understand how this system works fundamentally, economically, the capitalism. We just don't have that type of leverage and power. I often talk about how much it takes to run an institution, right? Many people complain about Dr. Umar not being able to establish his school and how long it's taken him to establishment, or any establishment, for lack of a better term, a company, not just an institution like a school. Just to keep the lights on for 1 year, right? We're talking about millions of dollars that need to be invested. Blacks would often say, oh, the athletes just come together and put their money together, they could change all of Black America. Not understanding that it would take 10 athletes to run a school. And most of those athletes don't have the actual capital that we think that they have. They have a few million. Let's say you have one team, there's only one or two players that's making what would be considered significant capital, and they would have to joined with probably another 10 other players in order to establish two major, let's say one Fortune 500 company to run for 5 to 10 years. So I think we don't truly understand what the economics truly are in regards to the value of the dollar and what billionaires and trillionaires really have or really are. This is these teams that they own, this is their play money, right? This is play time for them. Whereas we're trying to just get to the point to come together to purchase a team. And most times it's like 5%. We have 5% of the team, right? Or 2% when we're able to actually buy into a team. So I don't think we really understand the
economics of it all.
amount of wealth and money that's really out there that we don't have access to and may never really get access to. We're talking about Oprah's a billionaire, and on, what is she, 20 or like where is she in that billionaire level? And it's only one, right? When we're talking about billionaires, we're talking about 4 people, 5 people, all right? And we're talking about schools, banks, hospitals, etc. For one town, it would take several billionaires to maintain one town. I'm not talking about a city, I'm talking about a town, all right? To maintain it and have it be stable for the next 20 or some odd years. So we're talking about being, I'll make one other example. I had a friend I'll go back and forth about in regards to independent African center schools. And they would often talk about, I see these other, Catholic schools that have been around or been running and have stable income. And, and I had to explain to a friend of mine that these systems have been around for centuries, right? For decades and for centuries. Independent African schools, for you to expect an independent African school to have the same economic income coming in versus a Catholic school that's been around for probably 80 to 100 years, and also a system, right? A Catholic system as well as an Islamic system that's been around for so long. To now compare an independent African school to be able to run and then develop other multiple schools, and that's impossible. The starting line, we're not even at the starting line to develop a total independent system. Even the ones that were more recent, when we're talking about Dr. Malachi York and the Nuwapians, when he tried to create a foundation of I won't say industry, but just develop a community down in Georgia. And what happened with his circumstances, I'm not going to talk about his personal circumstances, but we know that government came into play to destabilize what it is he was doing. So I just think that, I don't know if I answered the question or not, if I took too long, but I think that the amount of money in institutions, or the amount of money that's needed to fund institutions is way more than any of us will ever know and understand. We can look at it through databases and measure some of the forecasts of what we could possibly do if we had this type of money. We don't necessarily have this type of money circulating. Even an oil tycoon out of Nigeria.
We need to build something different, bro. We need to build something different.
Yeah.
And that's basically, as you're talking there, Ware, all it says to me is we need to build something different, because we cannot play the same game they're playing. It's just impossible.
I just wanted to make that one last point. That oil tycoon out of Nigeria wouldn't be able to run. It wouldn't be able to run a city with just that money coming. That money coming out of oil would bankrupt him if he had to, run a city just him by himself. So you need multitudes of billionaires who are willing to be centered in African liberation theology to build institutions and companies and whatever, and in a different format. Maybe you take that money. This is, this what if theoretical conversation, but them coming together to build some type of town or city or institutions. But then how do you now move away from that capitalistic guard that's, that we're all subject to? It's a very complicated conversation to have. I mean, that's.
I'm glad you brought it up, though, because it's going to add to the conversation we have on consolidation.
Yes.
And as you say that, I'm going on Tyrone before I give my last word.
Yeah. I saw that.
Tyrone,
Go for it.
Like, we created collective economics. Both Babajide and Nuare gave examples of how we did that. And they did not work because, and these are my last words, we cannot sustain Black business under this system. This system that is anti-Black humanity, that is anti-Black wealth, that is anti-Black well-being will never
it will never work.
Because that's why we say, learn about your enemy. Learn about the system that is run under the false notion of white supremacy, what it actually stands for. Read from them what they actually want to do to us. Listen to them, Mark Rubio's video, and the other guy from Canada. I don't need to remember his name. I don't need to acknowledge it. Listen to them when they tell you what they actually stand for. You will understand that as long as you as a Black person pursue business, pursue anything under this system, governed by this system, it will go nowhere, because the system itself is anti-Black humanity and it's anti-Black humanity's well-being. That said, a friend recently, a fellow sister who's also returning to our way, said to us in a meeting where we were frustrated, myself and Oladila in that community. She said, because we're going back and forth explaining that capitalism must be gotten rid of, their ways must be gotten rid of, and all that. She says, think about what you can build without money. And from now, and from then to eternity, and I'll teach my children, and my children will have to teach others. So this will go on through generations. That statement will be made when we get in Bongi. Think about what you can build without money. That's what we need to start doing. Think about what you can build without money. If you build that foundation, you will never be able to be taken down, because you'll be able to sustain that. When the money falls apart, when the dollar falls, when the BRICS, whatever they choose, falls, when gold is not valuable, when whatever is not valuable, if you build that system that's not dependent on money, it will stand.
But you know what that system is. You know what that system is. I mentioned it.
And then you say
go
what,
on.
right? Hold on.
Go.
And I love that sister for bringing that insight too.
Yeah, Indico, the moment she said that, it's stuck in my head,
Yes. I was like, that's what I've been trying to say, but she had the words, and thank goodness for her. And then we need to detach, and this is what Nwari was saying. Well, he didn't say it, but this is what his argument and his observations lead me to conclude. We need to detach from this system, this exploitative system, this system that is anti-Black humanity, and build our own system outside from it. And then we need to start right now, yesterday, building strategies, talking about strategies that will defend that system that we build. I'm done. Thank you, Babajide. What were you going to say?
Yes, so I said something earlier when I was describing the framework. That system that you can build without money is what? The food system. You go and buy one orange in Nigeria. You suck that orange. You throw the seeds into the ground. What happens?
It grows.
Your mom is cooking, is about to cook. She buys peppers, right? She takes the water that she's used to prepare the pepper. She throws it into the garden. You come there 1 week later. What's happening? You got the capsicums growing. You got the hot peppers growing. You probably have leftover onions growing.
And if you don't have, you can go to your neighbor and ask for onion seeds and grow. And you can give your neighbor seeds without money.
And that's the foundation. Think about it. Once we have that foundation, everybody can eat. What else do you need? All your resources.
And if you have goats, which is what we do back at home, we're not telling anything we don't. And if you have goats, and I have all female goats, and my neighbor has a male goat, I will go to my neighbor and
trade by barter. Trade by barter.
The male goat and give him a chicken or whatever that's equal to the goat, and impregnate my female goats and have more goats without
it's even
money.
easier. It's easier today because of the level of education that we're now at, the level of exposure that we're now at. It's even easier. Land is accessible. We have the land
at home. It's not something we are saying that we don't. Back at home where I come from right now, this is what they are doing. When I went home in 2023, we wanted a chicken we wanted a rooster. We went to our neighbors, got a rooster. We gave them another chicken. We are doing this now without cash money.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the foundation.
Okay, guys. My final word is pardon?
What was the term the lady used?
Which lady?
The lady that did that.
What she's talking about is barter trade. What she's talking about is barter trade, but she said, think about what you can build without money.
Okay, so it's a phrase. Yeah, okay.
Think of we were in a group and she basically came up with that, and that's stuck in my head. Final word from me. Yeah, go on.
This quickly to give context. She said this because we were talking about building structures, actual homes and building structures, and we were making the argument that we can build with mud, and the people who don't get it yet were talking about it's going to be expensive anyway. You need money anyway. We're like, no, you have the soil on your land, you have the grass that you can cut up to mix with the soil, and you have some sand somewhere in your neighborhood. Get those and build your structure without money, or give your neighbor a goat because your neighbor has sand or grass. Let them cook that goat and you get that and build your structure without money.
Yeah.
Okay, final words from me. And Sarah, you keep going on about capitalism. Just look at Africa way back before capitalism existed. Look at what we did. This is basically what we're saying. We have the foundation. The challenge with most of us Africans in the diaspora and on the continent is because we think like the Muzungu that educated us. Just take yourself away from that miseducation and look what's possible when we come together to build. And this is basically what we're not doing. The systems are there. We had it because don't forget, and I say this all the time, Africa lived in abundance without capitalism. It was when capitalism came to Africa that Africa started to begin to lack because the scarcity came. And that was the genesis of our problem. That's the genesis of the problem in the world today. As long as we keep embracing that system, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be haves and have-nots. Because no matter what the system, capitalism is going to confine the capital into the hands of a few. But when you build it together and everybody is on equal terms and everybody empowers, there's possibilities in what we can do. And this is what we're trying to say. We can do different. It doesn't have to be what we were educated to do. We can do something different. And we, Africa, already did it. And we just need to embrace it and do it again and do it again. And that's what I'm saying. Guys, it's been 3 hours.
Yeah, if anyone
Thanks for staying with us.
Intelligent enough to figure that out, it's definitely African people.
Yeah. And also, something I forgot to say, guys, if you follow us, please subscribe to our channels.
Yes.
The Imagine Alkebulan, Kumbo Kenny, The Data Economist.
Yes.
Please subscribe to our channels, guys. Subscribe. It's something we don't even say at all, but it's about time we start saying it. Please subscribe to our channels.
And as you do that, also, Noire is a filmmaker. Look out. We gave the link there. Follow his link. Check out what movies he's putting out. Yeah.
So as you can see down the bottom there, please subscribe to the Emerging Alkebulan, Kumbo Kenny, The Data Economist, and Inwares as well. Please subscribe. Please share what was, this is basically, we're in community. We're sharing knowledge. We're sharing possibilities. There's things we can do. We don't have to, the Oyinbo, I'll say again emphatically, the Oyinbo way is not our way, guys. It's not going to save us. Anyway, guys, we'll see you on Sunday, actually. We're going to be talking about the imperial education with Professor Wandia Njoya from Kenya. She's going to be joining us on Sunday, 11 a.m. EST. Pardon?
One last thing. Have these conversations with your children because it's the children who will come up with these ideas in the future to develop a system without capitalism. So have these conversations with your children also.
Yeah.
Okay, see you on Sunday, guys. Professor Njoya is going to be talking about, imperial education, that basically, imperial education, how do we decolonize our education system in Africa? It's a very, very important topic because part of the challenges is religious indoctrination and African miseducation. So we're going to be talking about education on Sunday. So we'll see you on Sunday. Thank you very much.